All right, we are live. We are live, baby. All right. So, what's up, y'all? What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Kava Club podcast. You guys already know who I am. I am Will Nakuzi. I'm the host of this show. I am very excited today. I'm very excited. I got a very special guest, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. I know it took us a while to get on. I know she was still acting on Poly Time, but it's all good. but we're gonna make it happen. We got on. She's here. I'm very excited. She's one of our Polynesian sisters from Australia. She is the Miss Tonga Australia, representing Tongan from Australia. Also, she also is a big advocate for the Pacific Climate Warrior. But like I said, I'm very grateful, very appreciative for her to take her time to join us. Also, for everybody out there that's watching this for the first time, if you watch this for the first time, please show some love, show some support, like and subscribe to my channel. Definitely drop some comments below. Let me know your thoughts. But like I said, I'll let her introduce herself real quick. So go ahead.
Thank you so much, Will. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Maile. I am from Melbourne, Australia, as Will said. And yeah, I'm the current reigning Miss Tonga Australia, and I'm a Pacific Climate Warrior, and I'm studying psychology. I don't know what else to say.
Ethnicity, you're Tongan, right?
Yeah, sorry. And I'm Tongan. And I'm Tongan, and I have a little bit of palangi, but I just always say I'm Tongan.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for making it in. But let's get right into it. So the first question I want to ask you, Anna, is how did you grow up?
Yeah, so thank you. I was actually born in New Zealand, and then we moved over here when I was a baby, and I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of a few girls. There's three of us. Yeah. So we moved over when I was a baby, and so I actually grew up my whole childhood until the end of high school. We grew up in a place called Wollongong, and it's 1 hour below of Sydney. So in New South Wales, it's a different state. And so I grew up there. So we actually grew up. I really did have a lot of fun in my childhood. So I think so anyway. We went to we were very close to our extended family in Sydney, and me and my sisters were very close as well. And so I grew up in, and I went to very palangi schools, like predominantly white people in our community, not just our suburbs, but also school. And I guess one of the strongest things that connected me to my Tongan culture was our church. So yeah. I grew up in church from a very young age, and so we were really going to church every week, just like the traditional Tongan family would. Yeah. And my parents were highly involved. And then I guess another strong thing that I learned as a child was my parents were very, very hardworking, as all immigrant parents are. And so those were a few big things in my childhood growing up. And so we stayed there all throughout high school. But I guess in terms of childhood, so education was a really big one for my parents. So out of school, my mum actually involved us, me and my sisters, all of us, in a lot of co-curricular activities. And we're also doing a lot of tutoring as well. This is primary school. Yeah. We're also doing we were very, very busy. So my dad was always working, and then would be at church on Sundays. And my mum was actually studying at the time. I remember she was actually studying accounting. So we were all everyone was so busy in the house, but we were doing from a very young age. I started piano. I started playing flute. Me and my sisters also did little athletics. We were just so many activities. And we also had tutoring. My mum sent us to tutoring from really young age, all throughout primary school. And I didn't realize until I was in year 6 that it was all to prepare to try and get into the best high schools. So whether it was selective high schools that only the top academic students could go to, or whether it was a scholarship to a private school. So yeah, that was the whole purpose. And I really, looking back now, it really helped me a lot in school, going to all that tutoring. And it was funny because in all those areas or environments that I was in, so normal school, my regular primary school, it was mainly palangis. There wasn't any other islanders in the schools that I was in. And then when I went to my tutoring, it was mainly Asians. So again, like it's just like these different worlds. Like I just was the only islander, which I didn't actually notice until I guess like the end of primary school. It's when you start to notice, that you're different, that you're not what everyone else is. And so so we went to a Tongan church though. So that was like my really and I loved like Sunday school and everything. In primary school, I was such a little goody child. Like I was always like doing all the chores because I was the oldest. So I was always doing everything, looking after my sisters. And yeah, we were so busy. And we were always visiting our cousins in Sydney all the time as well. So I think as much as I felt like really outnumbered by like a minority, I really did strongly connect with my family and everything as well, like in my primary school days. And then high school, so what actually happened was I did manage to get a scholarship thanks to all my tutoring and everything, an academic scholarship into a private school. And that was probably when it was a whole like another world. Obviously high school in general is a big
big change.
Big change for everyone. That added another layer to I think I was struggling to navigate my way as a young Tongan girl, because it was a private school. So not only was I surrounded by non-islanders, but I was also surrounded by people who were like really rich. And my family was like just a really hardworking family, and so I knew that. I knew we weren't like well off, but they just worked so hard for us and made so many sacrifices for us to like be able to go to these places. So that was a whole nother layer of trying to fit in. So it was just like a whole, like even more pressure as a teenager. It's like, okay, you have to be like your palangi friends, like in your mind, like with pressures and everything. Like I have to fit in with my palangi friends. I have to also, like meet their level of like all the things they're buying and these brands and stuff. And so I think that was like another clash of like between the culture, like Western culture and my Tongan culture. And I remember we still went to church, like we were still strong in church, but my friends would be like, oh, like let's do this on Sunday. I'm like, oh no, Sundays, and my friends all knew, my Bali friends, I'm like, Sunday's off limits, she can't do anything, she's going to church. And I actually I remember I can't believe it now, but at the time I think I was a bit embarrassed of how cultural, and this is the thing, my parents weren't even extremely cultural compared to other typical Tongans. But just the whole being at church on Sunday the whole day. So I actually had some Bali friends that would sleep over on Saturday night, and then I'll be like, my mum would be like, just come to church with us. I was like, oh my god. They would still come and they would still help us with like preparing the food for the guy and everything. And then just like they were like, oh my gosh, like no wonder. And we would just stay there the whole day.
I want to ask you, you never made friends with any of the Tongan kids at church?
No, I did. I had close friends, but this is the thing, there weren't that many young people in my church.
Oh, gotcha.
So I do actually have this girl that's still one of my best friends today. There was a girl that was my age, and we were really close. But she'd always mock me. Like we joked, we mock each other all the time. But she'd be like, "Oh, like your school, like you're in a Palangi school." So the areas that she lived in there were islanders there. So I guess that's where we realized, and she would always mock me about she's like, oh, you're so Polynesian. I was like, oh my god. So I was friends with her, and there were a few other people, but there were a lot of younger kids, and there were a lot of elders. So I think that's so there were a few, but and she's like a lifelong friend. But I think that made a difference too.
Okay.
And then so I guess we were still going to church, and then I actually, and this is a big part of my faith actually, my dad became born again Christian, and he really transformed like his whole life. So for me growing up, seeing him like as a child, he went from like drinking and smoking, swearing, and he was like still like a really good dad and everything, but obviously he was drinking, smoking, and all that. He went from all that to like when he was born again. Like he gave up smoking, gave up drinking. He really changed like as a whole person. He really transformed. And for me, I was like, that was probably one of the things, because I was already in Sunday school and everything, and I was like a Sunday school nerd. But like I think that was one of the things that really was a really big point of my faith. And I was like, man, like God has to be alive for that for my dad to change like that. So and then he actually became like a pastor, and so now he's like an evangelist. Like he's not pastor anymore, but yeah, that was a really big change in my life, because I went from also starting high school, I was allowed to do, my parents were pretty lenient. I was allowed to do anything, and like hang out with my friends and everything. And then what happened was, when my dad changed, just the thing, he started getting stricter. And I was like, oh, okay, like, this is not gonna work for my social life. But yeah, so he started getting really strict as they do. And what happened, I struggled with that at first. And then what happened was, when I was about 14, something traumatic happened to me out of like in my social life, or out of the home. And I think, and I guess this is probably for a lot of kids in general, when we go through trauma or traumatic experiences, we don't know how to react, or we feel like we can't tell anyone, or we can't confide anyone. So the way I acted out was, I went from this like really good girl, like Sunday school, everything, and then I acted out in a way, like I just rebelled against everything. I think I felt like I didn't know how else to deal with it. So I went from like loving to going to church and everything, and I think the only way I thought I could deal with the trauma that I went through was shutting down like my emotions, learning to like mask everything with like wanting to have fun and being carefree. I acted so carefree. And if you ask anyone that I grew up with, they wouldn't have known, because I was just always laughing and everything. That's just naturally me anyway. But I was always after that, I think all I was trying to do was like, you know what, I'm just gonna have fun, and I'm just not gonna care about anything. And so that's when I started just rebelling in like every area of life, but especially at home, because my parents weren't really strict. So I started like, and my parents know this, so it's okay for me to say, but we laugh about it now because I'm older. But I used to like sneak out, like like really. I started just really rebelling in every area, and my parents were so confused, because they were just like, what happened? And I guess me and my parents, like, that was when our relationship went very, I don't know what you call it. We were just very distant, and we just didn't connect. And it's like, all I wanted to do from that point was just have fun, because I felt, I'm young, I'm a teenager, like, and you know what? I saw my palangi friends were allowed to do anything, so I was like, I want to have fun too. So my parents didn't understand, but all I wanted to at that time was just have fun, and I just wanted to be carefree. And then it got to the point where everything was going downhill. Like my school, there were certain areas of school I was actually still doing well, which was the weird thing, and that's what my teachers would tell my parents. They're like, she's still good, but it's just her behavior. And so everyone was just confused. And then my parents got so they didn't know what to do. So my parents threatened to send me to school in Tonga, and I was just, oh my gosh, I just cried my way out of it. I really didn't want to go, and I hadn't been since I was a child, and we did go a lot as a child. So I just hadn't been there though since I was probably 10 years old. And as a teenager, I thought, oh my gosh, it's gonna be so boring. I just really didn't want to go. And my parents were like, okay, they wouldn't send me to school. They were like, we're just gonna go there for the summer, and we don't have to discipline. And it was so funny, because it actually ended up being, although it did really, really humble me, I think seeing and because I was in these private schools, and my head was always like, okay, I'm trying to fit in with these people that are like rich, and they're all palangi, and they don't have the same culture. When we went to Tonga, I remember, I don't know what it was. There was like certain points we went to Tonga, and mind you, I never cried or showed like any sad emotions to my family or anything. And I still wouldn't in Tonga. I was like, I'm not gonna let anyone know what I'm feeling. But I remember, I don't know what it was. We were just like there was like little moments in Tonga where I just remember like my whole like I just completely humbled. I think there was one time where there were these kids at the marketi. I don't know if you've been in the town, Marketi Talamahu.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there were these kids, you know how there's kids that sell like the lays and stuff?
yeah, yeah.
And there was kids that sell lays, and like just seeing that, and when my cousins would tell me like, you know, oh, they're doing it to pay for their schooling. And so like little moments like that, and then I would see like kids like, you know, obviously selling things for their family and everything. Oh my gosh, I just like would like, you know what I would do? I would just like hold it in, I'll get home, I'll go and lock myself in the room and I'll cry. And I just felt like it was such I think I was 15. This was when I was 15 or 16. And it was just such a big breaking point for me. I really like, I went and cried and I was like, I couldn't believe, first of all, I was like, I couldn't believe I had been trying to like, you know, I was in my own little world of trying to fit in with these palangis that were like, well, like, you know, well off and everything. And like, just seeing your own people like in certain situations, I just really felt like, man, I'm so ungrateful.
Well,
sorry.
No. I think it's not really your fault because like that's the world you grew up in.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny. Like when you're sharing, I've heard a lot of stories like that. You know, at the end of the day, like you know, you grew up whatever city you grew up in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. But wanted to ask because I know you did talk about it, but you went through your phase where your rebellious phase.
My parents just laugh about it.
You know, I feel like it's funny. Like you know, I feel like all of us as kids, we at some point we go through that. But I wanna get your perspective because like I want to ask you like you know when you were rebelling, because I feel like I just had I do a lot of podcasts with Polynesian women and that's one of them. They always talk about like you know when they became a teenager, and everybody knows you know Polynesian as a Polynesian woman there's a lot of expectations placed upon you from not only from your parents but from the culture.
Yeah.
All right. So and I'm always interested to you like you know when you were dealing with the stuff and you felt like that they didn't understand you. Did you ever feel like opening up and communicating with your parents and telling them, hey, this is what I was going through? Because I feel like a lot of the stuff that we go through, it can be avoided if we just communicate. But want to ask you is, did you ever feel like number one, did you ever communicate with your parents to tell them what you were going through, or did you feel like you couldn't communicate to them? But I'm just asking your own experience growing up.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I think I don't know why, but I think I felt like I couldn't. Okay, I think with me, because even before like you know all my rebellion and trauma, I had never been one to be open with like feeling sad or you know admitting when I was down or like I was always just that smiley like laughing and everything.
But where'd you get that? Where'd you get that idea from? Like why did you feel like you couldn't be sad?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. Yeah. I think you know what this is strange, but I think I watched a lot of the women in my family, and my mom is like the nicest person ever. And I watched her and women in my family that was so nice. And this is so strange. I watched them like have a strong front, and because I'm really strong in my family, and I watched them have a strong front in front of everyone. Mm-hmm. But then let's say, for example, one of the random memories, I would see like my auntie, you know, have a strong face at a putu or whatever. Let's say there's some drama going on at a putu, as we know, there's always drama at events.
Yeah.
But then I would like, for example, I would always find these in my family like crying in a room. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I felt
by
like
themselves.
Yeah, by themselves. Because obviously, and I guess when there's things going on too, you don't want to be like. I think I felt like I didn't want to burden other people.
Yeah.
That was another thing, and I feel like maybe it's me watching that happen and watching other people hide their feelings. That mixed with me, I felt like as well. I didn't want to burden other people with like my sadness. I just thought, okay, I had this mindset of how can I always, because I was a big people pleaser.
Yeah.
And even when I was rebelling, but I was always trying to be nice and everything. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah.
and I think that kind of added to it too. It's like, if I am sad or if I am, I felt like it would burden other people. And even at school, my friends would even say it. Like, because I had seen a lot of as a teenage girl, you see a lot of your friends crying and stuff. They'd always say to me, they're like, "You're never sad." And I'm like, yeah, just because I have nothing to be sad about, really. I was like really sad. So I think I felt like if I had opened up, and this is to my parents as well, first of all, I don't think I knew how to communicate it properly because I didn't understand it myself.
Yeah.
It's like I was rejecting my own feelings. And I felt like when I did see my family, like if they were crying or whatever, even if it was alone in a room, I felt like younger me was like, is that weak? Like I felt like if I'm gonna survive, I had this like survival mode. I don't know why. I just had this survival mode, and I was like, if I'm gonna do well in everything, like I need to get on with it. That was like my mindset. So I think it's that mixed with wanting to get through things. And I thought, instead of like, because obviously now I realize, because I'm studying psychology and everything, but with my own life experiences, I realized you have to feel what you're going through and you have to process it. When I was that age, I had no idea. I was like, no, if I just suppress it, it's going to go away. That's what I thought. I didn't realize it's, you carry all this stuff like for years and it affects you later. But I thought, okay, if I just forget about it, it'll go away. If I just suppress it, it'll go away. Also, I didn't want to look weak. That was enough. I don't know why I had that as well. I think there was a lot of pressures as well. I guess being the oldest girl and I had younger sisters. Yeah. I actually didn't want them. This sounds strange, but I didn't want them to also, I felt like if I cry, if I'm sad, will they will they protecting them, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
This is not true at all. But yeah, I didn't want them to see me. I always wanted to protect them too. I guess that's where it came from. Yeah, I just didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to even accept it myself. I think I didn't know how to accept it myself. And then I just felt like also my parents and me and my mum are very, very, very close now. But when we were younger, she was always very, she was the best, but she was always very always like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. It was always very like task orientated. Okay. When we were really young. And I think that kind of maybe added to it too. Just realizing, okay, I have things to do. And that's what I kept thinking as well, actually, when I was going through all this, even though I was rebelling stuff. But I really thought, okay, I have to just get through it. That was my like survival thinking. Yeah. So I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah, that's basically why.
No, it's funny you're talking about your own personal experience from your own home, but that's something that's similar I hear from a lot of girls, right? Like nobody, a lot of not only girls and guys too in our Polynesian community, we don't believe in looking vulnerable, looking weak. I know we have this, the great thing about us is our pride. That's one thing I love about I think that's a strength that we have, but it's also something that's too much pride sometimes to admit the reality, admit the truth, especially if we're struggling. I just wanted to hear that because I feel like that's something that a lot of women go through. Also, I want to ask your opinion on this. This is something I did an interview with some I don't know Lanu. I did with Lanu Paletao.
She's so amazing.
I did an interview with her, and she said that, and I asked her like the question, like what's the hardest thing you think of, in your own experience, like what's the hardest thing of being a Polynesian woman? And she said that the hardest thing about being a Polynesian woman is like you guys get criticized for every single thing, no matter how big or small. So did you feel that like something, not only with your own family, as a community, like everything you did, right or wrong, like you feel like that you were criticized for it, and then because I feel like that's one of the things that stops us from growing as kids, is that getting criticized, and in that word criticized, to some people it can be disciplined. So some of us, we don't even get the criticism part. We just get the discipline. We just go straight to the discipline. We don't even get the words, the verbal criticism. We just get the physical, the physical criticism. I'm sorry if I'm just having flashbacks. Sorry if anybody's flashbacking right now.
No, we're all good. Yeah.
No, but
No,
I feel,
yeah.
but I feel like
Sorry,
it's it's our community's natural reaction of criticizing without understanding what happened, right? And I feel like that's why pushes a lot of us away, and that's why we all rebellious, because like we do, we. I know for me growing up, I used to get tired of like my parents telling me the same thing, like, oh, like, they're always just criticizing. I don't think there was ever a time where we ever chance like I did something wrong, and then they sat down and okay, what happened? Asked me what happened.
Yeah.
All right. And then a lot of times that was our natural reaction as kids. Oh, you know what? I'm deuces. Let's go. I'm gonna party. I don't want to hear this no more. I want to go. I'm gonna go party. I'm gonna go out. And I feel like let me ask you: if like for you, like you feel what could your parents done, or what could have the culture have done, or the community, that's up to you, to make you to better that situation to the point that you didn't feel like you have to rebel. I want to ask you, like what could have been different in that situation that could have changed for you not feeling like that you have to rebel just to and then you said it too, you wanted to mask a lot of things you go through. And I feel like as kids we do that a lot, you know, and we rebel. Not only we rebel a lot of time, most of the time we rebel because there's something that we want to mask that we're going through. So we want to feel instant happiness to cover up the struggles. It's funny whenever I see like somebody like now, because I've gone through my own life, and I see somebody like a Polynesian partying hard, I'll be like, oh, that Polynesian struggling. They're going through a lot right there.
Yeah.
So it's funny, but I want to ask you is what in your own opinion, what could have been different for you to feel like you didn't have to rebel and things gonna be a lot better? I want to ask you.
Thank you. I guess the first thing, the first responsibility or anything kind of probably lies with me, where I wish, obviously no regrets. I don't regret anything, but I mean, if I could go back, I would definitely, it started with me because I feel like if I had, like you said, like if I had reached out or even tried, at least I would have known that, at least I would have known that I tried to reach out and then it's like, then it's up to my parents or whatever. So I guess is the first thing. I wish I had reached out to, actually, I wish I'd reached out to anyone. I guess because I think I only had like one friend that I had, confided in, like about like what really was going on. And that was definitely me keeping it so like suppressed and so secret is, I guess it was me looking for an outlet, and my outlet was my behavior, obviously. And wanting, I guess, like you said, when partying hard, everything, like wanting to have fun was, definitely my like, well, I don't care about anything in life anymore, and it's just a sign, like it's just when you start to act out. So I guess I wish I had reached out, and in terms of like environment and everything, like you said, like what could have been different. Like you said, the first thing is communication with my parents, because we had this, and this is the thing, and I really did appreciate this now being older, but my dad we did have a lot of like family meetings. We always had family meetings, and there was always an opportunity. And this is the thing, my dad would always say, does anyone want to say anything? Does anyone want to talk about anything? And my sisters were so young, so obviously I was like the only like young teenager, and I would just, I don't know what, I just was like, no, I'm not going to say anything. I think actually another thing was probably, I was also thinking, I don't want to burden my parents because they were working a lot.
Gotcha.
And they were so busy with church and everything. But this is the thing, they always made time. So there was no, like, it's not like that's an excuse or whatever. They always did make time. It's just, I don't know why. Maybe because they were adults as well. And it's like you forget that adults were teenagers. So I just forgot, like, oh, they were young once. So maybe they'll understand. I never thought it. I was like, they're adults. They won't understand. I think, so if we had, I guess, communicated more in general. And that was up to me. And my mum would actually ask me sometimes. She would be like so confused. Like she would ask me, she's like, I don't understand. She would literally say, I don't understand why you're doing this or why you're being like this. And this is the worst thing ever. I used to see my parents because they were so strict, obviously. I only at that time, the reason I think I resented them because I was like, you're just trying to stop me from having fun. That's how I saw them. And I was like, why are you trying to like stop me from having fun? But they would always tell me, they're like, you know, we're Tongan. Like we're also actually, when you talked about the pressures of being a young Tongan woman, another layer of that, I guess, added pressure was church, because my dad was obviously, as my parents got stronger in the church, and my dad would always say to me, he's like, remember, I can't be out here preaching and you're over here like being naughty over there. And like, so he would always tell me, and so he'd be like, so he would say that, and I was like, so I just felt like, I was like, oh no, like, but then at the same time, I was like, the good thing about growing up in Bali suburbs and areas is no one's there anyway. So like, you know, it's not like everyone could see me, but I guess, so that was another thing that added to the pressure, like you said, of getting judged and everything. So yeah, definitely just the thing that you said, communication is where it starts. When it comes to environment, and parents, I think if I had more one-on-one time with them, and just sitting with them, at the time I was so caught up in my friends and wanting to fit in that I never wanted to be home. I didn't want to, I wanted to have like a social life, and I wasn't interested. I think another thing was I wasn't interested in talking to them about it at the same time, if that makes sense. I was so caught up that I did, and it wasn't until I went to Tonga that I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so blessed to come from a culture that really values family, and you know, and then there's a whole other aspect of faith and everything. So yeah, I think the first thing would have been that, and like you said, creating like, you know, it's always important as well to create an environment where you can have that communication. But yeah, it was just me, like my own thoughts limiting me as well. Like I just thought we're so busy, and I felt as well like I felt kind of guilty as well, because I knew my parents were working so hard for me to have all these opportunities. And that was another thing, actually. I kept thinking to myself, why, like I kept feeling like I can't complain because I have a lot of privilege, if that makes sense. You know, I went to a good school. I was, you know, we were living in a nice house, and my grandma was living with us actually at this time. Like she was the best. She was probably like, I didn't confide in her, but like she was like not the typical Tongan grandma that was like, let's go to church stuff. She was very like wild. Like she was my maternal grandma. She was like, so she was actually, this is so funny, and I don't remember if I told my parents this, but she knew that I was sneaking out. My grandma would know, and then she would always check on me the next morning. So it's so funny. But yeah, so she was like my comfort, like my adult comfort at home. But yeah, I think so that really did help, actually, just having that, even if you don't confide in a family member, but just having someone that just knows like what you're like and accepts you anyway. But I just felt like, I just felt really restricted. I think I couldn't stand rules and everything. I couldn't stand all the pressures as well. So I guess not just my traumatic experiences, but it was also that I just was like, I'm sick of being like, having to be like this goody church girl, and I just wanted to have fun with my friends. So I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, you definitely answered. So yeah, but I want to ask you, does your siblings, the younger sisters, did they grow up the same way you did, or is it a lot better now? The like growing up.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is my middle sister. She was bless my sisters, honestly. I don't know how they dealt with me during that time. She was the goody sister. So she was very academic, and she was very smart. So it's funny because she's only 2 years younger than me. And so we were close in age. So you think, because we were both teenagers, but I was going through all this. She would actually cover for me while I'm sleeping out. We were really close. I was like, please, like, just want to sleep in my room. Well, but she was so focused on school, and I don't know if it's because she's more introvert. We've got very different personalities as well, and so she was very, very good girl. And then my youngest one, who's like 6 years younger than me, they were a lot more lenient with her, which I was annoyed about. I was like, excuse me.
Okay. All right, so you went through that, so now you're in Tonga. Now you're in Tonga right now. Okay. So how is that trying to adjust to the Tongan life?
At first, oh my gosh, it was so funny. I realized so many things. Like I just realized I was so just not in reality. Because this is so funny. I got there, and I think I went there first by myself, and we were staying at we always stay with my dad's side mainly, and we were staying at my father's house, and I didn't really pack much because I had told my mom, this sounds so funny. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even ask or anything. I told my mom, I said, I'm not going to pack that much because I'm going to go shopping when I get there for clothes and stuff.
Oh
and
my
then
God.
guess what? I got there. This is how out of reality I was. Oh my gosh. And I got there and my auntie, my mom, she's like, oh yeah, so yeah. I was like, okay, so where's the nearest, I literally said this. I go, where's the nearest shopping center? Like the nearest mall. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, like I didn't pack much because I'm gonna go shopping. Oh my gosh. She was like, we don't have shopping centers. She's like, do you mean I go like Westfields? And she's like, we don't have that here. I was like, she's like, we have markets. And I was like, here's me thinking again, like Australian markets, this clothes and all this. I was like, okay, cool, I'll go to the market tomorrow. And oh my god, it was the silliest. It was so funny. But I always tell that story because everyone was just laughing at me because they were like, why did you think we had a shopping center? Yeah, I was so just far out of reality, and I was such a little I thought I was such a little brat at the time.
Yeah.
So I learned real quick on the second day or whatever that it's just a totally different world over there. Language, like when I get over there, like I'm really good. Like I adjust that easily. I loved, this is a random funny thing. I loved the heat over there. So I love like hot climates, which is weird because I live in Melbourne, but
Yeah.
it's cold over here. But I love like the heat, right? And so and this is actually another Pacific issue that I realized in Tonga, because I have palangi friends and stuff, obviously at school when I was younger, we always used to go to the beach, and I always loved that I could get really dark. And my friends were always fake tanning and stuff. And I was just like, and they were like, oh, you're so lucky you get to go to Tonga. And they were like, you can go and get really dark. And I was like, yeah, I can't wait. So I went there, and this is another issue I came up with. My family packed me sunscreen, everything, Yeah. And I went in the sun all the time, and I loved it. I love that about Tonga. It's so weird. People are like, oh, don't you miss the aircon? So I was like, no, I love the heat. It was so nice. And then I got really dark, and I noticed that the whole colorism issue over there, and how just not, I guess it's a beauty standard thing or whatever, but and that goes with white privilege and all that, those issues. I realized that was an issue over there because I got treated so different when I went really dark, and I was just like
what? How different?
Differently.
Like how different?
When I first got there, and because I'm pretty fair, when I first got there, I was like treated like this princess, and not just by my family, but like just in general, like everyone was like catering to me and stuff. And then when I got really dark, and this is why I noticed because my sister came, and my sister's even more fair than me.
Yeah.
Everyone in our street, all the kids and stuff were like, oh my gosh, who is that girl? And I was like, that's my sister. I was like, why do you guys care about her? Everyone was like, just like, because I had gotten dark already. I went really dark, and like my sister was like this, like, who's the palangi? But I was like, who cares? It's my sister. So I saw the way she got treated, and the way I got treated after I went really dark. I was like, okay, I don't understand. And my aunties are like, oh, Anna, like you got, like, not my close aunties, like these are like distant aunties. They're like, you got really dark, and so I was like, yeah, I love it. I'm gonna go back to Australia, and they were like, they just thought it was so weird, but I loved it so much. So I guess I came across that issue as well, and I did struggle a lot with that actually growing up in general, even in Tonga. The whole like pressure with beauty standards and everything. Because I was a really girly girl, but it's so weird because in the Western world of Bali, it was like normal. But when you go, obviously in our Tongan community, like there's like, when I was young as well, they're like, oh, you're so fiole, like you're trying to do your hair nice. And I was like, is that bad? Like, I didn't know. I just didn't understand why it was such a, like, it was like a bad thing. And I only became like that because I watched my mum, like, she was very, like, she took care of herself, and I watched her do that. So I just naturally, like, was interested in, you know, in like makeup and all those things. Yeah, so those were other things that I guess I kind of came across as a teenager while going through my little rebellion phase. But yeah, I guess Tongan life, yeah, I actually loved it. It was like a different planet, and I loved being away from it's just so separate to the Western world. And you know, it's not about like, I realized when I got over there, like, it doesn't matter about, for example, like shopping and like, you know, appearances and having to fit into like this perfect thing, you know, all the values I guess I saw over there, like even like when it was church, family things, and I just got really, really humbled. Yeah, and then we actually ended up going to Tonga every year for like every summer for like a good 2 months, probably like 5 or 6 years in a row. So it became like a tradition for us, it really like changed me and who I am, and I got to be really close to my whāhau and everything as well.
Yes.
But, yeah.
that's funny. No, that's funny. It's like, did you end up going to school there, or you never went to school?
No. No, I didn't. I actually, you know what's funny? I loved it so much, and because I got really close with my cousins that were my age, that were similar age to me, and I actually asked my dad. I said, "Can I stay and go to school here?" My dad was like, "You are not going to survive school." It's like they just knew. My parents were like, that after that, and I think they didn't expect me to. Maybe they didn't expect me to love it that much. They were just like, "Oh, you're not going to survive." And I remember asking my cousins. I was like, "What's school like here?" And they were like, "First of all, you have to have your hair in braids. You can't do this. You can't pluck your eyebrows." And obviously, me being like this little girly girl, I was like, "Oh my god." I was like, oh no. And then you know how like you get hit in some schools, they still do hitting and stuff, and I was like, oh no, like, oh, I'm gonna get hit all the time, I'm not gonna survive. Yeah, so I didn't end up going to school. So what I ended up doing was just every summer I would go for about 2 months. So my whole summer holiday was in Tonga. Yeah, and then it ended up being like a second home. So it really like, yeah, it was a big part of my upbringing.
and so going to Tonga, that was before or during your rebellious stage?
During. So I think it helped a lot with, so that first time I went, it's so funny, that first time I went, I came back, that first time itself actually really changed me. Obviously I was still a bit rebellious, but I think the second time, even I remember the deputy principal at my school, because they obviously, he even said to me, he was like, "You've really improved this year." I think I was in year 11, so it was my second last year of school or something, and I had just really improved because after, you know, just going to Tonga and stuff, like I stopped, I really like minimized my rebellious behavior. Like I stopped skipping school so much, and just rebelling in school. And my deputy principal actually said to me, he was like, what made you improve so much? He actually asked me, and I didn't even think about it. He asked me, he's like, "You've improved so much already. You know, what happened?" And I actually told him, I was like, I went back home, and he was laughing. He was like, "That's so good." I was like, "I know." Like he was just like shocked. He was so shocked as well, like how much I improved, not going to the deputy principal's office anymore. Yeah, so things like that. Yeah, so probably the second time was when I guess I didn't turn into like a goody again, but I just it really did change a lot of my behavior.
Yeah.
Just yeah, I was just humbled so much. Yeah.
And I know you said, like, you know, I know you talked about growing up, and you grew up more with the palangi, right? So was that always a struggle for you, like trying to connect with your cultural side? And did you? And I know you mentioned before, people always calling you palangi. I know that can be fun, but sometimes like that can get tiring, like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, it's strange because I grew up so young with palangis, like from primary.
Yeah.
It actually took me a few years to realize that I was different, you know, that I couldn't just do whatever I wanted like my Palangi friends. I think maybe, I don't know if it was like the beginning of high school. So I didn't actually, for example, stereotypes and everything, I didn't have those in mind until high school. So I'm trying to remember. As a primary school kid, I don't really remember, like, you know, it being a struggle. And I guess primary school, that's normal. But when I got to high school, even in terms of like academic things, that was strange. So for example, like my friends will be like, oh, like, or people will be like, you're really like skinny for a Tongan. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, you know, do you even know any Tongans? Like, I would get really like, okay. And then that was another thing. That was a big part of my upbringing as well. Like, I had a really bad body image, because this is so strange. My Tongan cult, like my family and stuff, would literally feed me double portions, triple portions, because they were trying to fatten me up. Because they thought, oh my gosh, you're sick. And I was like, no, I just have fast metabolism or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, so I felt not good enough with that. But then when I went to a Bali school, like high school, and everyone was trying to be skinny, and I was like, what? It didn't make sense to me. I was like, oh,
and they see you
like,
as like bigger, like bigger. Your
oh, like the Balangis were like, they thought it was a good thing. So I was really confused, and I had these two different, it was like pressure from my island side, because they were all trying to fatten me up. I didn't get bigger. So I didn't gain weight till like last year. I didn't gain weight till last year. And then, so they, you know, they were like trying to force, and they kept telling me, you know, it was like this idea that like, you know, Tongans don't like skinny people. And so like, but I went to this Bali school, and everyone was trying to like lose weight and stuff. And I was so confused, because I would be telling the girls, I was like, no, I wish I was your size, or I wish I was like, you know, curvier, or like had more. And they were just like, why? And I was like, no, because yeah, they didn't understand. So that was a struggle, I guess, in itself. But in terms of being different, so being Tongan with Balangis, yeah, I didn't realize until high school, little things start to pop up. So for example, me even having like an academic scholarship, there was some fellow like classmates that were like shocked. And I was like, they're like, because for example, they thought, oh, I must be well off to be at the school. And then I'd be like, no, I'm on scholarship. I would just tell them I'm not on scholarship. And they're like, what kind of scholarship are you on? And I was like, an academic one. They're like, and then I actually did really well. I loved English. English was one of my favorite subjects. And that was another shock too. Like I had a friend who joked, but I was like, excuse me, who joked about how they're like, oh, I can't believe you're doing so well in English, because like you're Tongan. And I was like, okay. That when I heard things like that, that was when I realized, I was like, oh, like there's stereotypes.
There's stereotypes.
Become aware of what stereotypes are, because I was living with Balangis, I never heard of these. I never thought of it for myself, at least. Yeah. And then things like because they would always, you know, there was always stereotypes that I should be able to fight people and stuff like that. I was like,
beat people up.
And that was a thing as well. Like it was just like all these stereotypes I didn't know until high school. But this is the thing, I didn't let that, I guess, it made me in a way more proud of like obviously quietly at that time, but I was more proud of like, you know, being smart and everything, because I was like, I never saw like my ethnicity as being a barrier to like, do you know what I mean? Like you just realize that there was those stereotypes. Other than that, I think it was like I felt too brown to be in my white school and community, and then too white to be in like, it was like these two different worlds. Like even for example, and this is the thing, I wasn't even dark or like a dark brown girl, but when me and my friends would like, you know, I was like the token, they would literally call me like the token black girl, and I wasn't even like, do you know what I mean? I was that token, and they would make note of that. And then when I go to my like church and stuff, they're like, oh no, the little
like
girl. Yeah, it's so weird.
So you feel like you're by yourself in your own world.
Yeah, and I felt like I guess, you know what's, I actually noticed that with I guess I had witnessed that before anyway with my mum. My mum's because she's half Tongan and she's half Bali. So but she was very traditional Tongan because she was raised by her grandparents. She was actually more traditional than my dad. So which is funny, but she was always, I've noticed that she would go through the same thing. So for example, we'd go to Tonga and she looks like, I don't know, people would obviously assume she's palangi. And then I would hear ladies, for example, ladies like talking about her in the shop. And then and I'm like, oh geez, I don't know my mom's fluent in Tongan. And then my mom would like, she would, this my mom is so nice. She wouldn't say anything, but then she gets to the cash register and she'll start talking like fluent Tongan. And then the ladies were like, oh my gosh, like, so I saw things like that anyway. So it's like, I guess that kind of comforted me in the way that like, I don't know, yeah, that kind of was a comfort too. I was like, well, mum's been through this. But the difference was obviously she looks like, she does look very palangi. So when I was in the palangi spaces like school and everything, it was probably just the stereotypes. Trying to think what else. The struggle of strict parents. Like obviously not being, and all my friends knew. They're like, oh no, Anna's not going to be allowed. And then I would obviously like, sometimes I'll be like, oh no, I'm just going to go anyway. But yeah, so that as well. And they didn't, just having friends that didn't understand. I had this one friend, it's so funny. She would literally not understand. She would say, you just have to tell your parents you're coming. You just tell them. And I was like, you don't understand. I'm Tongan, I can't do that. And you know what's funny? My parents actually loved her. They thought she was the funniest like friend. But she would tell me, she's like, you just say, I do what I want. And I was like, I'm not gonna say that. So I can't say that. I'll just do what I want, but I can't be talking to my parents like that. And then I would see her when she would tell a story about like they like yell at their parents and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would never. But yeah, I think that was pretty much the only things, I guess, non-stereotypical Tongan things like that I went through. Like, okay, I played the flute in high school. I was in an orchestra, for example, and I was in a school orchestra, and I didn't tell anybody in the Tongan community about it. And my parents would actually try and get me like to play flute at certain things, and I was like, no, because I didn't want to tell anyone. I don't know why. I can't believe it now, but I was so embarrassed. I was like, no, they're gonna mock me. They're gonna say it's not a Tongan instrument. They're like, oh, you should play guitar or something. But yes, that was another thing. I guess I felt like I was like two different people with like each space, if that makes sense.
Yeah, two different worlds. Yeah. Like you felt like you couldn't be yourself.
Yeah.
Like you always had to accommodate for them. You had to switch your personality for them. It's funny. I actually grew up. I was born in Australia. I was born in Australia. Yeah. In I don't know if you're in Sydney, Hurstville, News.
Yeah.
In Hurstville, that's where I grew up as a child. But then I moved to Tonga. I grew up in Tonga. Then I didn't move here to the US until high school. So I grew up in Tonga. But then I remember when I moved here to the US, the school I went to was all palangi. So I went to high school for the most of the time in high school. I grew up with palangi kids. So it's funny. So I started like learning about the palangi culture, thinking like palangis. But it's funny. I realized like when I hang out with the Tongan kids, if you try to act like a palangi, they'll make fun of you. So I learned how to switch up my personality to make sure I'm cool with them. But then when I go with my white friends, I know I bring out my white side.
You have like
what's up, dude?
Sides.
Like, what's up, dude? What's good?
Oh, the talking, the switching.
Yeah. What's up? Hey, what's up, dude? And then we go on my tongue. So hey, I'm talking about it's like big.
And like the slang and everything, you had like on the slang.
Yeah, but it did. You struggle with it because I realized, like, man, like I could never be myself because sometimes like I'll be my Tongan friends, and they'll talk about something that they'll trash a specific topic or something that I enjoy doing with my palangi friends.
Yes. Oh,
like music. Like, and do you like this music? Worst. Oh, do you like rock music? Oh, I don't like rock music, but with my palangi friends, they rock music. We're like, we're all dancing to rock music. So I just felt like sometimes like I just couldn't be my natural self. And then, but now I'm like, doesn't matter to me. Like now, when I'm with my Tongan friends, I just be myself. And then, and then with my palangi friends, I can just be myself. And but yeah, I can totally relate to what you went through.
It's especially with like you said, like music and everything.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, because I, for example, like it's funny how now when we're older we just don't care.
Yeah.
But
We
when
don't
you're
care
a kid, you're just trying
to
so
fit in.
hard to just not get mocked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No.
like
Yeah.
even like with talking, like you said, like I even have like a customer service voice that I do because of work. But I just had this like I would try and speak like, so I spoke so differently at school, and then with like church friends or like any islanders, I'd just like switch up to the islander slang, and then obviously like laughing like extra loud. Things like that. Oh my gosh. Even it's so funny because in my parents, I remember sometimes it would obviously cross over to home, and I would speak really like with my whole like slang and everything at home. And one of my parents said to me one time, "Is this how you talk at school?" And they're like, "We did not send you to a private school to talk like that." And I was like, "No, it's okay, I can switch." And they were just like, "I hope you don't talk like this." It's so funny because like it's just you just end up, it's like we said before, like there's just you're a mask, you mask yourself in like this community. And I guess with me, like it came back to the whole like people pleaser thing too. Like I was just trying to make everyone like feel comfortable, everyone happy, but it's like you don't regard yourself. Yeah.
So I want to ask you is like from your own experience, being who you are today, because you grew up in both worlds and you saw like the good and the positive and negative in both worlds. So I want to ask you, what's the being around Palangis, what's the good thing about being around Palangis and being around white people? And because for me, my personal experience, like the one thing I love about Palangis is like it challenged my mind to explore. And I feel like as Polynesians that we tend to like we don't challenge ourselves, like we just settle, right? And the one thing I love about Palangi is like they expanded my mindset of trying new things, of trying whatever I want to do. Palangi, if they want to do something, they do it.
Yeah. Like there's nothing like they don't think about, okay, what are people going to think about this?
Yeah.
Like
just
community wise, yeah.
Right. So I like and I felt like because I grew up with them, that allowed me to challenge myself and go to try new things in my life. That definitely helped me in my career as far as where I'm at right now. All right. So I just want to ask you, what's the positive, what's the positive you learned hanging around with Balangis and then how that helped you, but also what's the negative thing about hanging around Balangis in your own experience? Also for you, I know you talked about it. In the Tongan culture, we learn a lot of values, strong family values. That's one thing I love about my culture. We learn about a lot of really faith in God, the foundations of how to treat people, respect. But I want to ask you, what's the negative thing about our culture that stops us from growing and like being the best version of ourselves? So, and especially that can be different because you're a woman, right? We go through our own experiences as guys and girls. Because girls, you guys, they want you to stay at home, and guys, Tongan guys, they just let us go free.
Lucky I didn't grow up with any brothers to see that, but
I remember.
I noticed.
I remember like our sisters, I had to stay inside the house, and then when it came to us, like nobody cared what I did. I just I could be gone for 2 days. Nobody. When I'm back. I'm like, I'm home. I'm home now. I need food. And just jump in and life goes on. But yeah, what I asked you that. So that's my question. Yeah, what's just to tell me what your experience from both worlds.
Yeah. So I guess one of the positives that I've realized now that I'm grown is that growing up like from a very young age even, and going through being a teenager around an environment where there was only Palangis, I think I naturally learned, because I was around them so much, I naturally learned that I can I mean, not be afraid to ever step into any space like
Yeah.
where I was the only islander, if that makes sense.
Got you.
So
Got you.
especially even like being really young, for example, I think the most one of the first intimidating experiences that I remember, like, or where I felt outnumbered, was when I actually I guess, yeah, so they're not palangi, but they're, you know, different culture. When I was in tutoring in primary school, and it
Yeah.
was mostly Asians,
Yeah.
and and they were so smart, and I was just so amazed. Like, we were in like 4th grade, and they were doing like 8th grade maths. Like, I could not believe. So I think that was my first experiences of feeling like I'm different.
Yeah.
And I guess obviously not just different because I look different, but yeah, so realizing that was a different culture. So that was my first experience. That was so scary for me. I felt so dumb. So so that was my first experience in primary school, you know, being in an environment where it was just so intimidating. There's all these really smart kids, and so that was my first experience. So you learn to get comfortable. It's like you learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like,
Got you.
being in spaces where you're the only one. And this is the thing, like, we don't want it to stay like a minority. Like, I guess I reckon that's the key, like, in what's the word, when you challenge yourself to go into those spaces. For example, even now, like how islanders are, you know, going into different areas of interest, or like expanding beyond the stereotypical sports and music and everything.
Okay. Yeah.
You learn that you can go in those spaces. You just have to it's like you're building up your own courage to be able to be in those spaces, if that makes sense. So whether it's workplace, because I know there's obviously people will go to work where there's, you know, there's not another islander there or anything, but that's what it taught me. So that was a positive. So I learned I didn't care if I was the only brown person.
Yeah.
I guess after, you know, being in a school like that, where there was no other islanders, that was one of the things. I no longer cared if I was the only brown person. And for example, I didn't actually notice that either until we had cousins would come down from Sydney to visit us in Wollongong, and they would tell me, and this is when I was like, oh, I never thought like that. They would be like, we went to the Hungry Jacks and everyone was looking at us. I think it's because we're brown. And I was like, I just never thought of that until my cousins, you know, and I realized that's when I realized as well. I was like, wow, I'm so used to being the only brown person. When people look at me, I don't even care. Like, you get comfortable. So that was the first thing it taught me. It taught me just to be comfortable with being the only one in certain spaces. And we don't want it to stay like that. We want it, you know, to pave the way for younger generations to be able to go into different spaces, whether it's work or school or whatever. You know, so there's more representation everywhere, you know, even things like the media and everything like that. So that was a positive, definitely. I guess another positive was I wasn't scared to, like we talked about, explore different areas of interest and everything like that.
Try
so
new
for
things.
example, for example, how I like played the flute in school, and being in the orchestra, like I couldn't believe how comfortable I was with that in my school. I was so comfortable. Everyone's like, no one cared.
You're home right now, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have the flute lying around right now?
No. It's in my storage. No, but yes, I was so, like, you know, I was so comfortable doing it. And I even, you know what's funny? We had an orchestra trip to New Zealand. This is how secretive I was. We had an orchestra trip to New Zealand to play an orchestra for some, I don't even know, something we had. And when my island friends at church and stuff, they're like, why are you going to New Zealand for school? And I was like, oh, just a school excursion. Like, I didn't even tell them why I was actually going. That was a positive. Like, I guess you get comfortable trying new things, like, you know, different areas of interest. Even things like, because I played tennis all throughout high school too. And like, I never talked about this stuff with my island side. I don't know why. I just didn't feel comfortable. I just was like, I'm not gonna say it before someone mocks me about something. So that was another positive, just trying new things. I guess, you know what, actually, when we talk about two worlds, what learning, sorry, I'm like, okay, so when I was in both worlds, like, something you learn as well is, you learn I guess you kind of learn to be able to, this is where the clash comes in. You learn to be able to balance individual thinking, because that's Western culture or that's Balian culture. And like you said, Tongan way is like collective thinking. So you learn these two different, and I guess that's where the struggle is too, as a teenager, especially. You're trying to balance, okay, how can I think for myself, but also think of like my family, if that makes sense? And
I think,
not forgetting.
I think that's something that one strength that we have for people that like you and me, like that experience in both cultures, is like we learn how to adjust, right?
Yeah.
We learn how to adjust, and I feel like in this forever changing world, and especially in this society, that in order to progress, you have to learn to change and adjust to your adapt to your circumstance. And I feel like that's what stops any culture or anyone that from growing, especially if you grow up in a very cultural environment. What stops them is because they're not willing to adapt or change, and to like just to welcome another person's way of thinking.
Yeah.
All right. So for like me and you, like we had to like be aware. Okay, I'm in the Tongan culture now. I want to be able to adjust and make people feel comfortable by acting the way they want us to act, right? Not just be like a douche. Want to be, So I feel like that's important because that's one skill I feel like that's necessary for growth in life. That you have to learn how to notice your environment, how to adjust. You can stay true to yourself, but just learn how to make changes. Because a lot of people don't want to change. But for us, changing was like a natural. We just
exactly.
We had that switch. We just
it's like
on.
survival. It's like a survival skill. You learn. It's basically like survival skills. Like you just learn to adapt. So I guess that was the positive, and you learn, like for example, individual way of thinking. And I guess that's something. And moving over to like now, like maybe negative aspects or challenging. I'm going to say challenging aspects of our culture. Like we definitely do. I've noticed anyway, my own experience, like in my own family, everything, there's always that struggle with, okay, what about me, like my own needs or my own, what about my own life or personal feelings or whatever, and then what about everyone else, my family? And it's like that struggle to balance, if that makes sense. And so so to the point where like you don't want it to become, I guess one of the, and it's not always an issue, but it can become an issue when you're, what's the word? I don't want to say it the wrong way. Like when you become, you don't want to become like a slave to like all. I'm not going to say that. I'm just not sure how to word it.
You don't want to be limited by our culture, and its way of thinking. Yeah. Because you realize, go ahead. Yep.
Sorry. And I'm not trying to say that this is the thing. I don't think, it's not that there are negative aspects of our culture. I love our cultural values and I love all our customs and everything, but it's like, and see, this is what my my dad taught us, and I'm very thankful for this. For example, when balancing, taking care of yourself and taking care of the community. For example, my grandma was a very social butterfly, and she was living with us. So she would always be going to, and there's obviously responsibilities in our Tongan culture, as I understand, like there's roles that you play at certain events, and you have to go and do this and that, and you have your role in the community and everything. But my dad always reminded us that we have to take care of our family first, and then yourself first, obviously in that. And that's where like there's like can be a clash. How obviously like you want to make sure you're taking care of home first, before you're taking care of everyone else, your extended family, your events or whatever. So while my grandma was always going to these events, this is so funny, I actually used to try and go with her. And my dad would be like, no, you're not going to this birthday or this, and I was like not understanding. I was like, oh, but it's like the culture or whatever. And my dad would be like, no, you have school, like blah blah, and so he really helped, I guess, with starting that way of thinking where I need to take care of home first, and then part of that is obviously I need to take care of me first. Just balancing that, if that makes sense.
I mean, that's something that I hear a lot from my own conversation with my friends and also conversations with other people, because I know in our culture, like this is the priority. The is God, family, and everything else. All right, and that's usually the priority in the Tongan culture, which I do believe, and I grew up in, which I do value. Right, I do value God. I have my faith in God. That's the reason why I'm here. I give everything to Him. I do believe in family, but for me, I'm also a big advocate for self-happiness and self-love. That you have to do what's best for you before. And I'll put it out there, like anybody, before your parents, before your family, before anything else, your culture. Like for me, happiness transcends everything. Because this is the way I see it. I can't be a great father if I'm not happy. I can't be a great family member if I'm not happy. I can't be a great member of the church to love God if I'm not happy. So for me, that's why everything starts from happiness. And I know that's one of the hardest things to navigate as a Polynesian, as a Tongan, because if you start, especially for women, right? If you start living your own life and start making your own decisions and not care about and not follow the expectations or what people expect you to live, then you're just seen as like, they'll just place like different labels on you, either disrespectful kid, you don't care about anybody. And especially our community where we give a lot, right? We have to help our family. And my own personal experience, when I realized what I wanted to do for my life, and especially my career and what I wanted to do, which I'm doing right now, I realized that I had to live a different way. And of course, I have dreams, and dreams don't come cheap. I have to support my own dreams. Right. So I had to financially take care of myself, and I had to put myself in there. There had to be times where like I had to say no to family members and I'm not saying no because I don't want to help them, and I don't love them. It's just I want to do something for myself, and I want to accomplish something. And my family knows, and I've grew up most of my life helping and giving all my, get a paycheck, give it, you just give it to your family, and then you have nothing for yourself. It's all funny. It's funny. I'll show you something funny. People can relate to this. Payday, normal people are happy. All my palangi friends say, "Oh, it's payday, baby, Friday. It's going the weekend." They're looking at me. I'm looking. It's like, why are you so sad looking at your check? I'm just like, I know I'll never get to see this check.
No, it's like you don't even like think. You know what? You don't even think about paydays.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want. My boss is like, "Do you want me to know how much you made?" No, don't tell me how much I made this week.
Wait till I get taxed, and then
so that, but it's funny to say, but it is kind of. But the thing is, like, I feel like the word I like the word you use. There has to be some kind of balance, and right there has to be some kind of balance. Like you can't just give everything to your family and church and have nothing for yourself, right? And I've seen it too many times where Polynesians will give everything to their family, give literally everything, all they have, and then nothing, and they have nothing left for themselves. And especially church too, churches, Tongan churches, woo, you gotta spend some money. You gotta throw some big money. Those are, especially all the events. And then I've seen families literally throw all their finances into a church event, but then they have nothing for their kids or for the kids' education. Like, they have nothing to support their kids. So, and I feel like this is a great topic, and I love we're just having funny conversation at the same time, but sharing what we feel. But I feel like that there's a lot. That's a word. I'm not saying it's like we're not being slave. I don't want to feel like you said. I don't want to say we're slave to our culture. I love my culture, proud of my culture. But I don't want to be limited by my culture when it comes to my overall well-being or my happiness and what I want to do for my life. And that for me, I want everybody to experience the fullness of their life. I want them to achieve everything they want to achieve. I want them to excel in it, be as happy as possible, get as much love as possible, and reach the most amount of success as possible. I feel like, and I just feel like that as much as we love our culture, there are a lot of things that's not healthy to our growth as people. So But yeah, I'm gonna go back to you because you were sharing some good stuff. So I just want to put my little story, my 2 cents out there because I really feel like that a lot of the struggles that we have as kids, as Polynesian kids, women and men, is because our culture and our culture mindset of way of thinking and customs, traditions limits us instead of pushing us to go outside and be the best we can and be the best we can be. So I'm gonna throw it back to you.
No, that's so true. I love it's so fun. I can definitely relate to what you were saying. But yeah, like you said, like I guess I definitely witnessed, and I think because just growing up with a lot of, we were very close with our extended family. So like, you know, cousins, great aunties, so we were close with them. And I think I witnessed some family members where, and I'm not, I guess I'm not trying to say that everyone falls into like becoming, you know, enslaved to the culture, but, or I guess letting it control their whole lives. But I have I grew up with some family members, and this is a funny thing because, you know, even when I was like rebelling and stuff, I was very vocal about everything that I was feeling, even in family spaces. So I was, you know, not afraid to you know, go against my aunties and try to be like, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, house. And you know, it's funny. My dad, this is so funny because my dad actually would look at me and I would look at him like, you know, like, is he gonna be like, cut it out, or whatever? And he would just laugh. So my dad was low-key like that I'm standing up to, you know, family members, because and I think my mindset came from him, like being like that, thinking, you know, I'm going to take care of my family first before, you know, putting culture before everything. And I guess one of the things, I mean, before I go into the whole payday things, one of the things, I guess as well, that can be like become toxic if it's, and you know what, I think it only becomes a problem when it's out of balance, like we said.
Out of balance.
So I think one of the things that I noticed, and maybe this is more as well for females, is that, and one of the things that I struggled to I guess comprehend, even going to Tonga and, you know, seeing different issues, like, you know, like any other place in the world that you go, there's issues everywhere. I noticed that there was an issue of, and this is for whatever country you're in with Tongan community or island community or whatever, is the issue where sometimes your reputation is put before someone's well-being or people's well-being, and I really struggled. Really struggled to comprehend that. And maybe, you know what, maybe that's another reason why I didn't want to reach out, because I felt like, is this, like, can I even talk about it? To my to my parents when I was going through things. So that was another thing for me that I noticed. So reputation just being like, you know, it's
more important than your own, than own well-being and happiness.
I couldn't believe that. I think, for example, like, I don't know, if you'd hear things in the community, obviously you're with young girls as well, we hear like, you know, aunties saying something about someone else, and I would just never understand. I was always like, oh, like, is the girl okay? Or like, you know what I mean? I just couldn't believe that people, it's like there was this no
sympathy.
It's like, there was no and there was no like it's like they didn't care about like what the person was, you know, they didn't ask questions. They didn't question things.
There's like no empathy to put themselves in their shoes to understand what they're going through. All they care about is like they disappointed the name.
And it's all about honor and, you know, must look good, and maybe that was another thing as well with me masking feelings. Okay, everything must be looking good, everything must be good, and I think a lot of islanders go through that with masking their emotions as well. But so just that whole thing of like reputation over well-being is definitely a big issue. And then when it comes to I guess what would be another thing related to, and there's a quote, or there's like a saying I love with that. It says that the cure to judgment is empathy. And so it just, like you said, like, it just, when you really understand people's stories and people's perspectives and listening to someone's stories, like, it really just, you think, you kind of feel bad, or like, oh, I can't believe I ever judged them, or I can't believe I ever thought of that, without knowing all the sides of the stories and everything. And that's the thing as well that I've noticed when it comes to our own people. We're usually the ones
No, go ahead,
Oh, yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I thought you were yeah. When it comes to other people, like we're just so quick to judge instead of being interested in listening, or it's like, oh, who cares? That's a disgrace or whatever. It's like, why don't we ask questions? It's like learning to ask questions first. And I guess that comes
Before
with, like,
judging. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I guess when you listen to other people's perspectives, yeah, it really just changes your way of thinking, and then you understand why things happen. And then I was laughing when you were saying the whole, like, giving back and the whole payday thing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so yeah, definitely feels like I remember when we, working my first job and everything, like you said, my friends would be like, oh my gosh, like I just got paid, and I'm like, well, that's nice.
That must be nice, right? That must be nice.
That's nice. I'm very happy for you. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I think that's another thing I've realized too, is that like you said, knowing people, and I know people too, even like people within my family and stuff, that give literally everything. And I guess I'm thankful, like with my parents, like, even though I did give back a lot, and me and my parents, like, we got really close after my teenage days. So I wanted to give back. I was like because they were there for me, like towards, like, by the end of my teenage years, and I got so close to them, and I was just like, thank you so much. So yeah, I want to give back, and I guess learning to find that balance between, you can give back to your community without damaging your future, like and like you said, when you're giving everything to the point of, like, when you have nothing left, that's just not a sustainable,
it's not healthy.
It's just not a sustainable cycle, like, because then and it's like, your parents moved from overseas to give you better opportunities, not just to give back to them, but also to, like, build your own future. So I'm really thankful that my parents were always very, like, really good with, like, making sure that I build for my own future too, and not just get stuck in, like, giving everything to family and church and everything.
Yeah, and also, I mean, just put out there, I know if my family members are listening, I'm not complaining when I give my paycheck. I was willing to give my paycheck. I wanted to help my family.
We do love it. It's just
it's hard sometimes, but for me, like you said, it's not sustainable as you become an adult, because as you become an adult, you have your own life, you have your own bills, right? You have your own family, right? You have you have your own expenses, and it's really hard, especially depending on what type of job you have. But it's really hard to take care of everyone, of your family. You, like, take care of my own kids and my own wife and my own family, and take care of what everybody else is doing. So it just, like you said, you can't help other people if you can't help yourself. You have to help yourself first. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's so true. No, sorry, I was just thought of on that topic of, like, having family members that wouldn't understand the balance, or they don't believe in balance or anything. I just remembered a few years ago, I don't know, this is a random, like, story, but I remember a few years ago an example of, like, learning that some people just don't understand that you need to, like, that there is always, you can help, but there's other ways that you need to do for yourself as well. I was working a lot, and it's so funny, we had family staying over, and one of my family members they actually didn't criticize me giving back financially. They criticized me not doing chores. And this is a funny thing. This is so funny. My sister told me that this happened while I was at work. Because I had, obviously, when you get older and you start working to provide financially for your family, your younger siblings just naturally obviously do chores. Like, I'm always at work, and I was actually studying as well at the time. I was, like, at work, and I think I had 2 jobs at the time, and they had been sneaky. My family, like, these are relatives, they went to my sisters, and they were like, why doesn't Anna help with the chores in the house? And I was like, and my sister was, oh my gosh, it was so funny. She said she was like, because she's always working. And then they were like, yeah, but she can help out with the house. And my sister, because we have an adopted sister as well. So she would be like our 4th sister, basically. And she was so confused. She was like, but Anna's always working, and Anna always gives her pay for like to help with, you know, finances.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, yeah, but she should still be doing the chores. And then she had to tell them, she literally had to explain to them, first of all, we have 3 girls at home who can share the chores. But they were actually questioning that. So it's like they couldn't understand. I'm always at work to help the family.
But it just shows you the limited way of thinking that people have.
Yeah, it's
culture.
like they couldn't understand that. How can I? It's like I can't do everything.
Yeah, and plus, like those, like, I'm not. I mean, I don't know, but I can if I had to put money, I can guess that those are criticized who have never worked 2 jobs in their life.
Well, that's the thing, and I just didn't understand. I couldn't believe that they said that. I was like, so they weren't. They were questioning my giving back physically, so my chores and stuff. And then I had to actually tell one of them. I was like, you know, I grew up doing all the chores. It's just that my time is over, and it's time for them to go to work.
and that also, like, that's another conversation that we could have, like, to understand that the way of life in the culture in Tonga is different from the way of life in America, right? So, like, in Tonga, like a woman, like, of course, that's how you guys grow up to do the chores, because usually in Tonga she has no other job, like she's at home. She has the time and energy to do the chores. In America, women have to work. You have to work. They have to go work. So there's a different role or responsibility she has. So clearly most of the day she's at work now. So, like, when she comes home, if the people that don't work, they gotta do the chores.
Yeah, exactly. And my sisters are younger. So
I know, right?
But I'm sure 3 girls can help with it.
And that's one of the struggles of, like, the elder generation or parents, like, they expect us to live out these customs that works well in Tonga, but doesn't translate and move and fit here in America, because it's different. It's a different culture, different role, different responsibility. I think that goes like gender roles, right? They want the women to keep fitting that role, the traditional role.
To do everything.
Cook, clean, do everything. All right. Even if you guys are the main provider of house, they still expect you to cook and clean and do everything. And it's crazy is I've seen women do that too, and man, that's a lot of stress. I see that, like, I can see that, like, even though they're doing it, but like you said, then you walk into the back room when they're by themselves and they're just like,
and they have
crying,
to cry somewhere,
and they're crying, right. And I've seen that not only with my own family, where, like, the female has all the responsibility placed on them, and then she just, of course, she can't say anything, she just does it. But then I'll catch him behind by themselves in the room, and they're just breaking down. And it's sad to see. Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, no, yeah. Oh no, I was just saying, like, adding on to that, like, I think, and that's the thing. I think people, even our own family, sometimes, like relatives or whatever, like, it's like they don't realize that they don't see the struggle. They only see, like, the good things. And I think one of the reasons why these relatives were actually questioning it, because they might have thought I was, like, spoiled somewhat, because they were like, for example, like, because I was working 2 jobs, I also did have time to, I bought everyone presents and stuff. But they were obviously, that's probably why they were questioning it. They were like, why is Anna spoiled? And they were trying to make sense of it. And it's like, I'm not actually spoiled. I actually work for everything, but it's because me and my parents had such a good relationship that, for example, like, they gave me a big 21st and everything. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think they would see things like, but the thing, I would only show the world and social media or whatever. I would only show when my parents gave me something. I'm not going to be showing everyone when I'm working. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's like people forget, just because they're seeing good things that you're getting provided or whatever, they forget you're actually helping as well. And I think that's what they were failing to understand. It's like they were questioning, why isn't Anna doing everything? And I think, it's just so strange, but
it's just like the limited way of thinking, like, and understanding, right? And I feel like that's the biggest thing I see a lot. And I know you mentioned it before, how, like, when Polynesian kids, when they make mistakes, the first reaction of most people is just to judge and, like, judge them because, like, for some reason they're not perfect no more, the reputation of the family or whatever.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot where people are a guy or a girl will make a mistake, and then everybody would just tear them apart, and not think about the well-being of that person. Because and that's why I feel like there's a lot of mental health issues now with a lot of kids out there, because like, you know, nobody wants to understand, and everybody's all they just get defined by their mistake, and then and they have to live with that, and it's up to them to overcome that. I saw that. I don't know if you ever watched the. I did a podcast with a girl named Minnie, and I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, I haven't seen the full video, but I saw snippets and I saw parts of her story. So that's so true. Like I haven't watched everything fully. But yeah.
So I did. So, you know, if you don't know, but I did a podcast with the Tongan. Nettie, shout out to you. Ofatu, love you. But no, she shared her story, and of the story of, you know, her and her friend. You know, they got raped, right, by these Tongan guys. And for me, and I remember, like, she posted it and she shared it, and then I saw on Facebook the comments of people, and
I saw some of that too.
It was so disheartening and you know, low key disgusting to see people trash her from being raped. And
I saw too.
Crazy.
I if she ever watches this, I thought, like, that was just so brave. Like, I was really inspired by her just being able to open up and tell her story publicly. And you know what? I saw some of the things on Facebook too, and I was in so much disbelief, because I just couldn't believe.
They were trashing her like it was her fault. You know?
Yeah, and that's that was another big thing that I forgot to mention, like, in our culture, and I guess we talk about this with mistakes. And even people, like, there's a big thing in our a common issue, that I've noticed within our communities is that there's a lot of, like, there's this strong victim blaming habit. Like there's just this instinct to just, oh, you shouldn't have been there, you shouldn't have been there, blah blah. Like, do you know what I mean? And I actually did see a lot of comments that were like, oh, she should have just stayed home. This is why you stay home. I saw this one comment. I saw this one same thing. The comment similar to yours. This is what they said. She wrote it in Tongan, but translated in English. He said, "That's what you get for leaving home." Oh my god!
You know the word. In Tongan word for kisi. You know, that's slight. You know, in Tongan, that's like the word for, like, slut shame. But that's what happens. That's what somebody said. Like, you know, there's a four kisis that leave the home. That's what you get.
Yeah, I saw things like that. I was just like,
god. Oh my god!
But we let our sons go out. But you let your sons go wherever. Like, it just doesn't. But I definitely, like, I was in so much disbelief when I saw some of those comments, because I just could not believe. Sorry, yeah.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I couldn't believe that. I just couldn't believe, like, some different perspectives or takes on it, where it was just like,
no understanding, no empathy, no understand.
Like,
understand. Just
I saw one thing, and I saw one post, and I'm pretty sure it was a family member, actually. I don't know. I was, like, very, like, oh geez. There was a post, and it was a perspective, and it said something like, "Why would you laugh while you're telling your story?" or something. And I was like, oh my gosh. And especially me being I'm studying psychology now. I was like, this should be known, that a common thing in our community, when we go through trauma or when we go through a problem, we laugh. Mm-hmm. It's actually a normal trauma response too. It's a coping mechanism.
It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, some people cope with their struggles and everything by just laughing at it or making jokes about it. And, like,
me
me too. So, like, and that's the thing, like, and I just I couldn't believe, like, it's very sad. And you know what was very sad, actually, for me? I think the most sad thing that I couldn't believe was just the fact that a lot of people weren't taking such a serious issue. Like,
they were laughing. They were laughing about. They were laughing. Like, literally, they were making fun. Like, they were like fun comedy humor. They were just making fun of her.
It was so sad, and I just couldn't believe it. And I just thought, this is exactly why like people don't speak about any kind of trauma. Like no matter, like for example, when I was younger, like that is literally like that would have probably been my biggest fear growing up as well. Like everything I went through, like was just literally what happened, like on social media, and everyone coming forward. And I think that was just the sad thing. There's no like desire to try and understand, or people like, it's like when you see something out of the ordinary, for example, people not understanding the coping mechanisms of trauma, one of them is laughing. Like, you can Google that. Like, like that's the thing. This is the thing, like people are quick to assume. And I feel like if any of those people that assume that it's not normal to laugh in such a serious thing, you could literally Google, is laughing while telling a story. Like there's so much information on the internet. It's just people are not willing to listen or learn, or once they see something out of the ordinary, like with the whole laughing coping mechanism thing, they just assume, nah, it's fake, or it's not real, or they don't want to, it's almost like they don't want to believe it as well. It's sad. It's really sad.
Well, the saddest thing about what I saw in those comments was most of those hurtful comments came from women.
Yeah.
Came from women.
You know what? And they the term misogyny, like just the dislike of women. I honestly feel like, and that's the sad thing, a lot of I feel like a lot of women were raised to have internalized misogyny. For example, internalized misogyny example would be like, like that, oh, she should have stayed home. Or maybe if she wasn't partying, or maybe if she wasn't doing this, that is literally what, like, that's what keeps that toxic cycle. You know what I mean? Or having just that mindset of women should be like this, women should do this, blah, blah, like it comes from women, which is sad. And you know what? I get, a lot of it actually does come from mothers, sadly. You like, I've just with studying everything, like, it is really common for it to come from mothers. Even things like the way we dress and things like that. I laugh about it now, but for example, it's so funny, my mum's more traditional than my dad. And when we were in Tongan, I remember when I was about, I think it was the first time I went over there, it must have been, because it's so hot in Tonga, and I was 15 or 16, and I wore shorts. Obviously, it's hot. And I wore shorts, and I had all these shorts, and my mum was furious. And she was
it shorts or like short shorts? Was it short shorts?
Oh, like short shorts. Like, but this is the thing. I in my mind, I'm like,
that's just shorts.
Hot, it's hot. I'm gonna wear shorts. And because I didn't grow up with a lot of, I had boy cousins and uncles stuff, but because our home, like, we didn't grow up with brothers in the house. I wore shorts and stuff all the time. So you don't think about that. So when I went to Tonga and I was wearing shorts, I remember my mom was yelling at me. She was like, "Go and change right now. We are in Tonga. You do not wear shorts." And this is me. I was like, "It's hot. What are you doing to wear?" And it was so funny. My dad, I found this ironic. My dad was actually the one. I went to my dad. I was like, "Can I wear this?" And my dad was actually the one who said to my mom, he's like, "No, she's a child," which is true. Like a 15-year-old, like, he's still a child, but obviously, you just learn from a young age, like, things like that, obviously, and our culture, customs, or anything. But it was so funny. I found it so ironic that it was my dad who said not to care, and he was the one who was like, "It's hot, and she's not used to this climate," and so I ended up being allowed to wear the shorts. But because of, I just thought it was interesting because it came from my mum, and not my dad. And then it's funny, even like going into my 20s, when I would still wear shorts, and I had Islander friends, and I remember one friend pointed it out to me, and I said, "My dad," and this is so funny, I always use this because I'm like, my dad approved of this, so you can talk to my dad if you have a problem. So it's funny because it usually does, like you said, it comes from other women, and we learn that way of thinking. It's just so crazy how, like, all of that, and even like the shaming, it usually does come from other women, and I feel like that's where it's pushed forward, because women are doing it to other women. And that's how these things continue, because women are just going against each other, and when we should just be really uplifting each other. But hopefully I see the younger generation already, obviously, and there's a lot more I guess, women empowerment today than ever before. So hopefully we can progress like the faster we can progress like with our people out of those mindsets and even out of the victim blaming mindset. Hopefully we can like keep pushing out of that, because I guess we don't want our kids to go through the same thing.
I feel like the first step is like we got to get out of this mentality of, like, we have to be able to understand, and that's the first in our community. That's the first. We just judge it. That's our first reaction is always criticize and judge, because for some, I don't know what I still don't understand where this expectation came from, where all of us need to be perfect, because as people know, no one is perfect. It's always the people that criticize and gossip a lot that they like their kids are going through the worst.
I know. Oh my gosh.
But it just blows my mind how like people know that they have their own struggles and know they're not perfect either, because they've done it before, and they know that their kids would have done it before, but they still criticize other people. And that culture or environment, that's something I just don't understand where it comes from, because because it's just not, for me. I don't know, is like empathy. I feel like it's natural. It's natural for a human being. If you see somebody that gone through something that you went through, like, you feel for that person. But for some reason that like our older generation parents never got that memo.
And like you said, with all the comments and everything, like I think
No, because I feel like they've been like I said, I feel like they've been ingrained and conditioned to culture. Culture that's number one. That's everything. Like everything else, like that, like happiness, well-being of somebody else. We have to keep the culture. We have to keep the culture. And I feel like that's where I'm just trying to reverse engineer the why our culture is like that. But I feel like it's because we've been taught in our culture, like it's the culture before everything else. Nothing matters. The kids well-being doesn't matter. It's just we have to make sure that we keep this culture. And I remember with Lanu. I remember interviewing with Lanu on a podcast. Shout out to Lanu. Hey. I loved what she said. She said, look, people that our Tongans that want to keep this culture, they forget that the culture don't make the people. People make the culture. We make the culture. We determine what the culture is. So there's so we don't, like, if we decide to change something that's unhealthy, then that becomes a new culture. Like we have this belief that especially the elder generation, that the culture cannot change. It cannot change. We have to stick to the culture. And if you try to change it, something, your enemy or something's wrong with you, or they'll like condemn you or make you into an example. But everyone out there realized, we as the people, we make the culture. So like we determine what the culture is, and just like every culture in life, in history, things change.
Exactly.
We don't live the same way back in the 1500s. So we learn. we changed. So
that's true.
So same thing with our Tongan culture. I love my Tongan culture, but I want to make sure that our culture also improves as well. We need to improve our culture so that way we can keep loving our culture. Because if I feel like if we keep doing we keep living it, or if we keep it the way it is now, then what's gonna happen in the future is gonna be a lot of kids that don't want to be Tongan no more. They don't want to rep the culture no more. Because like they lived it and grew up in the struggle with it. And I'm good off that. I'm done. I'm gonna go hang out with the palangis. I'm gonna chill with the palangis. And I'm gonna live with the palangis. And we need, like, that's, I feel like I need to say that, just like let people know people make the culture don't make the people. And then it's up to, like, that's why I love what we're doing now and not having a conversation about it. But it's gonna come to our generation to come together and make the new culture. And now all of you and me, we've gone through the old culture, and we know what the things that we don't like. So we gotta definitely have to make sure that the culture I'm gonna teach my kids, when I have kids one day, I'm gonna teach them a different Tongan culture.
Exactly. No, that's so true. I love what you said. I do love that quote as well from Lanu. She's amazing. Oh my gosh. But I do love that, and I think that probably is what people forget, that even in our history, like our culture's changed so much. For example, I don't know, pre-Christian missionaries,
Yeah.
people, and I guess even now there's a lot of people that we connect, we're starting to learn about that kind of history. But I think people forget, for example, even back then, like Christians coming to Tonga, that for example, there was a lot more hierarchy before then. And I think people forget that. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot more hierarchy in terms of, the monarchy and things like that in the society. Whereas now it's more like back in those days, for example, not everyone could do the daulunga, like was allowed to. Do you know what I mean? I think people forget that all these changes, like we're going to go through that now as well. For example, with the whole mental health being able to be discussed now, like everything's a lot more open now than ever, more than ever before. You're right. Like it's just learning to put our people before the customs and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And just putting them first and remembering that, like you said, like it's the people that make it. Not the actual, not the rules and everything. And no, that's so true. I totally agree with that. And like you said, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, like you said, like with the experience, and that's why people do like walk away from their culture, or they have this perspective, they have one perspective of their culture, so they think that's what it's like for everyone, so they just reject it. And I think the more we begin to like have these discussions and talk about all these taboo topics that we would never have been able to talk about like years ago, then I feel like we'll progress further, and the more people actually feel like they're being cared about, then the more they're gonna like love our culture even more. And like you said, like we're gonna be giving our kids a whole different experience. And I feel like we'll be a lot more protective. I mean, obviously our families are very protective, but I mean in a more emotional way. And I guess because we do, just touching on how we spoke about with being able to communicate with our parents and everything, I always try and remind myself that our parents did do like the best they could do with the knowledge they had at the time. And our struggle is like navigating between the two worlds, but I always remember, okay, their struggle was going to a different country completely and like making that way for us, like, do you know what I mean, and settling into a whole new environment. So it's like, okay, we're the first ones to like experience it. So it's like just remembering that we all like, it's like each generation like had their own different struggle, like main struggle. And then
No, I'm glad you've got that part up, because I every single time I get on a podcast and somebody shares the struggles growing up, especially with their parents, that's something I always want to make sure we let the audience know. Hey, at the end of the day, no matter how tough your upbringing was, like our parents just teach us raise us the same way they were raised. They teach us what they were taught. So it's not no matter how no matter how hard your parent is towards you right now, it's not it's not their fault, because that's all they knew. So at the end of the day, our parents love us, and like I said, everybody's taught a different way to love. Some people love with affection, but for some our parents, the way they were loved was the way they show love is to listen to your parents. That's our Tongan community. The way we show love is to be obedient. By obedience, that's considered the love. That's how we show our elders our love, is through obedience. All right. So they're just expecting you to follow the same way that they were taught and raised. So but it's like we just have to make the best of it, and and then, but like I said, it's our responsibility to take that and build off that and make sure that we make the different changes and improve it, because I don't want people to to start to resent and hate their parents, because that's one of the saddest things for me to see, is like kids and parents grow apart because of the challenges that we go through. And I always want families to be together. I don't want you to go to your parent, hey, Will said on the podcast, I got to stand up for myself.
Oh my god,
revolution.
That's the funny thing. My dad actually, it's so funny. I'm very close to my parents now that I'm older, but my dad actually, growing up all the way from I don't know, as long as I can remember, I actually had no problem. Like, this might sound bad, but I had no problem talking, like, they, our people call it talking back.
Yeah.
But my dad actually allowed me. But this is the thing, I didn't know I was allowed. But I would just, I don't know why, I just couldn't hold it in. So I always would be like, oh, but blah 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 blah, and then my mum would be like, oh, like, don't talk back, or family members. And this is the thing, I didn't, like, I don't know, I just couldn't hold some things in. Like, I just would have to say, I was like, no, but you're wrong, or this, and my dad always, like, I didn't realize that I, like, wasn't getting punished for speaking my mind. And it wasn't until I think I was about 18 that I realized my dad had purposely raised me like that. So what actually happened was,
Yeah.
it was so funny. There was two things that happened. For example, my middle sister, she was a really good child, and she, even through teen years, and she never talked back. She was always like, okay, I'll do it, whatever. And then there was this one time, me and her were getting lectured, and so she wanted to badmouth she was obviously venting about my dad. She was like, oh, I can't believe when you said that. Anyways, she accidentally sent the text to him. She was texting me.
Oh.
She accidentally sent the text to him, and it was not a good text. She was like, venting about my dad's lecture, and then, oh my gosh, my dad, she runs to my room. She's like, oh no, I accidentally sent this text to dad. And I said to her, I go, why didn't you just say it at the lecture? Because my way of thinking, I always didn't say it. I would say something. Yeah. And then it was so funny. If I disagreed, I would always, like, say it. She was so scared, and my dad came upstairs.
Well, how did your dad react?
And he was like, he actually was so serious at first, and he said, he looked at her and he's like, why don't you just tell it to my face, like, Anna? And I was like, oh, okay. We actually had a laugh. I think my dad couldn't hold in because the text was so bad. And he was just laughing, and he said, and he even would say to my sister, he was like, you need to tell me, like, because he was so used to, I think, me and different personalities, obviously, so used to me objecting everything. And just speaking my mind. And then so I realized at that point, I was like, oh, so he didn't care that I challenged him. And then there was another time, it was one time, because because I love my parents, we're so close, I always argue with them about anything and anything, and we would get into screaming matches. But I was full. There was this one time where my dad, I don't even remember what it was, but he was telling me something, and we were arguing. We went back and forth, and I actually gave up because I was just like, whatever. There was this one argument, I gave up, and I think I was 19 or 18 as well. And he actually questioned it. He said, and I just said, whatever, yep, fine. And he said, what do you mean, fine? And I was like, I'll just do it, or whatever. And I was whatever we're arguing about, and I just kind of submitted to his whatever he said. And then he goes, he actually said to me, and I couldn't believe he waited till I was 18. He said, I didn't raise you to be quiet when you don't agree with something. And I couldn't believe it. Was like this big, I was like, wait, so that's why you let me talk back all the time? And he said, yes. And he would even say, he's like, why do you think I didn't care when I used to argue with family members when they come to our house and stuff, at events and everything? And I was like that cousin or that child that, like, if one of my sisters or one of my cousins is like crying about something, I would literally go to that family member, I don't care who it is, and I would start yelling at them. And my dad said to me, he's like, I let you do that because you need to learn to not be scared to speak when you have to speak. And I just, like, couldn't believe I was risking getting hidings those whole times. But so he was like, he became big on communication. I think it is so funny, when I turned 18 as well, he actually did a family meeting with all of us, and he said, I no longer believe in hidings. He actually said to us, I no longer believe in physical discipline. He's like, from now on it's going to be communication. And I was like, I'm 18 now, it doesn't matter. I was like, oh, okay.
That's always the first child. You're the experiment child. You got to experiment with experiment on how to be parents with the first child, and then they realize, okay, this doesn't work, and then there's the younger siblings.
Oh my God. I was so happy for my sisters though. It was so funny because after that there was no more hidings in the house. And my youngest one, she's 6 years younger. She was like early teens, and she actually ran into my room one time, and she was like, Dad's gonna lecture me or gonna yell at me. And I was like, so we don't do hiding anymore. But this is the thing I actually realized as well after, physical, like you said, with our culture, with physical discipline. It's so funny. I actually found the lectures more
Worse.
more difficult.
Yeah. Like I'd rather take the hiding.
Yeah, because it's quick, right? And I was like, well, I'm not always quick, but I actually remember saying to my dad one time, he was lecturing me, and because it really gets to you. Sometimes you'll say things and you're like, oh no, I'm feeling
hurts.
like I care, like it hurts.
Yeah.
And I remember literally saying to my dad one time, I was like, please,
just give me.
And that kind of just shows another thing, like how we would rather, it's almost another thing of not facing your feelings as well. It's like you'd rather just get the punishment than actually have to face what you're feeling and that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is a toxic thing to have if you don't want to deal with your feelings.
Yeah.
I know. And also like you said, like the ability to speak up, right? I feel like that's something that's very important, especially to our growth. Because I feel like in order for us as a culture to excel and to progress and to change, that we have to speak up when we see problems. Because I feel like if you raise your kids and not allow them to speak up, I think that the worst. I feel like what you're literally doing is teaching them to tolerate something, whether or not if it's healthy or unhealthy, right? Depending on the parent. And I just see this a lot where Tongans or Polynesians, they'll if you're blessed to have a loving parents, man, great. But the reality is there's a lot of households that are broken. There's a lot of parents that are toxic, parents that are broken, not really good parents. And whatever they teach or however they raise their kids, in their mind they think that okay, that's how it is, and they never challenge that. And then I just see a lot of kids go into try to figure out a life, and that's why we fall in those mindsets. Oh, I can only do this as a profession, as a Polynesian. I can't challenge. I can't speak up to do anything. And I remember just understanding that. I was kind of looking back at myself because I was like, man, how come I'm living my life? Because if you look at me compared to my siblings, like I'm like the black sheep. I'm totally different. I'm way off as far as what I'm doing for my life. Everybody is like living the Tongan traditional lifestyle, and I love all my siblings. But I'm just like, I'm on social media. I'm just way. I'm doing podcasts. I'm just like. And I always ask myself, how come I never, how come I never just fit in with my siblings and just fall into the role of what a Tongan man should do and should live. Yeah. And I just realized that I grew up with palangis. So I just saw people speak up. I just saw people speak up and challenge things, and I just saw that within myself. And that's why I feel like I see a lot of Tongan men and women. And it's sad, and especially when it comes to like, relationships where I see like women tolerate things that they shouldn't be tolerating. I remember I had a whole discussion with a podcast with Apao. I did her last Thursday. Shout out to her. But she talked about how women, Polynesian women are, they're very forgiving and very loving.
Yeah.
Very forgiving, very loving.
Yeah.
And then for me, I had family members I used to see they're in like very toxic relationships or like abusive relationships, and I'm just like, why not leave? Why not?
Yeah. And you learn it from home. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not leave? And then I mean that was when I was younger. I never realized, but then when you learn about life and mindsets, that's what she saw at home, where her parents had the same relationship, and that's what. She's not willing to express and challenge herself, and she just learned being taught to tolerate. Do you see that? Do you see that a lot happening in like?
Yeah, no, definitely. I really agree with that. And you know what I've learned? I guess even before I'm studying psychology, I've just pretty much started before, but that I've learned that with a common thing with our relationships, is that you're really trying to recreate whatever environment you grew up in. So if you have a chaotic upbringing, or if your parents can you hear me still?
Yeah.
No, I just like took my earphones. Yeah, so when you see like, if you grow up in a chaotic environment at home, you're usually trying to recreate that with your relationship. Or I actually I read something about as well that apparently your relationship with your parents,
Yeah,
it actually can dictate your
your
relationship
relationship with your partner.
as well. And it's so funny. I didn't realize that. I think until a few years ago. Um, I'm not going to mention any details, but yeah, in a relationship I had when I was younger, my parents already know about. Yeah, so it wasn't physically abusive, but it was like very is emotionally and mentally abusive. Like,
Yeah,
um, and I think I realized the way I reacted would actually be the same as how I would react to my parents.
yeah,
So I had no trouble speaking up and everything. But then, like you said, with toxic relationships, over time, it actually like you become smaller. I don't know
yeah,
whether it can happen to both females and males and
yeah, yeah.
whatever, but you actually become smaller, and then you become you just end up losing yourself
Mhm.
in those toxic environments or relationships. And even friendships can be the same, or like your relationships with family members. Oh my goodness, toxic family.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I remember being like, the whole 21. My dad always said this growing up, like, when you're 21, you can do whatever you want. So when I was 21, I
That's
was
a
like,
that's a lie.
what's funny? No, the first thing I thought of, no joke, well, I was like, when I'm 21, I can't wait to not go to all these certain family things that I was like, that was actually one of the things I thought of. I was like, I can cut off like I can, and it's like you learn you don't have to be in environments with certain people, whether it's friends, family, whatever, partner. Like
Yeah.
you just like you realize that you have the power to control like who you allow into your space
Hmm.
and toxicity in, like no matter who it is. But yeah, sorry, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, no,
Yeah.
I was just laughing about the 20. You brought up the 21. They need to stop giving them the key. That key it's false advertising.
I know, it was so funny. I actually, because me and my parents were so close after my 21st, I was like, and I kept saying to my dad when I was younger, I can't wait to move out, blah, 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 when I'm 21. And my dad was like, watch, you're not going to move out, and then we're going to be sick of you. We're sick of seeing you in the house. And then I actually I moved out at 22. I think I was
Yeah,
22.
yeah,
And even my friends were shocked. Like, they were like, wow, your dad was okay with that? Because I guess people had this like idea that my dad was like super strict. But
yeah.
by that time, like me and my dad were so close, and my parents. So like and I was like, yeah. And they were like, how did you ask your dad? This is so funny. And I said,
Yeah.
I didn't ask him. I
I
told
just
him I'm moving out. And because me and my parents are just so close. And I think people, even that, like you said, when people live their own life, I even had a relative who actually questioned I think she questioned my mum, I think it was.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it was like, what? Because I live a whole state away. And my parents are back
yeah.
in Sydney. And they were like, look, Anna doesn't want to listen to you. She moved a whole state away. And this is the funny thing. I said to my mom, and no one, this is the thing, I don't think people realize how close me and my parents are. They know everything. I said to my mom, I was laughing with my mom about it. I said, I don't think they realize that how close I am to you guys, where we're not telling each other what to do at this point. It's like they know what I'm doing, and they support and love me either way. But yeah, it's just so funny to
Did
see
you
all
get
that. And
did you get a key on your 21? Did you give you a big key?
what's funny? I didn't get a key. I got a Bible. And my dad, he was so, bless him. He actually said to me, oh my gosh, he's so cute. He said to me, I'm giving you a Bible, no key. And he said, because the Bible is the key to life. And I was like, oh, that's a good one. And I was actually worried. I was like, does this mean like I don't get my freedom? And it was so funny, but yeah, he was so, it was so.
I know. No, every time I see the key, I was like, "Oh, this is false advertising." They are not free.
Oh my gosh. I know, because even I'll be even how I'm a state away, right? When I go home, it's like I live there. My parents are so funny. And not even just my parents, my relatives, they'll be like, oh, do this, do this. And I'm like, or they'll be like, where are you going? And I'm like, I don't even live here. Oh my gosh, so funny.
Oh man, I mean that was a really some good discussions, right? Some great stories. I'm gonna shift away from our culture, kind of balance it out a little bit. Yeah, I do want to talk about. I know you. I'm interested. I know you. You are the Miss Tongan Australia. So I'm just I'm interested to hear that journey. You know how that went for you, and you know what inspired you to do it, and I'm also interested to hear like how was the feedback? Because like I could just only imagine like the feedback you got, you know, because there's always haters and always supporters.
Oh yeah.
So can you talk about your journey of being Miss Tonga Australia?
Yeah. Thank you. I so it all started back in this is so ironic because even though I always grew up as a very girly girl, you know, into like makeup and getting dressed up and stuff. And all those times I went to Tonga, actually, we saw things like Miss Halala.
Yeah.
Right. But I never ever thought that I would ever, first of all, even go to Miss Tonga Australia and then go to compete in Halala as well. Like I never thought we'd ever, like I just never thought about it. And it wasn't until I think it was a few years ago. And this is another thing with like me masking. This is another thing, not just masking my emotions. I actually used to, all the way up until only a few years ago, just before Miss Tonga Australia, my Miss Tonga Australia journey, I really didn't ever voice my opinions on things that I believe in. And I'm not just talking about faith, I'm talking about like, you know, social justice issues, things like that. I never ever voiced my opinions. I don't know why. I guess it was like I wanted to be that fun one. I just, and everyone and this is the funny thing. What happened with Miss Tonga Australia was it's so strange. I was watching, I think, the Miss Halala from the year before, and this is so weird, but it's like I had this thing where it was like a prompt. I don't know that.
Oh,
like,
got you.
It's like I just like got
you
like
you just felt it. Yeah.
I just felt it, and I was like, okay, I don't know what that was, and I was like, and you know, people say like God speaks to you sometimes, and I would. This is the thing that I'm not very like I don't live a devout Christian lifestyle, so I was like, okay, what was that? That was weird. And I actually asked my mum. I said, this was before Miss Marsha. I said to my mum, I was like, what would you think if I went to compete in Miss Halala? And she was like, what? It was funny. My mum actually competed when she was young. But
okay.
yeah, so back in
for sure.
Yeah. So she was so shocked because and she was like, what even? And I was like, I don't even know. Like I don't know. I was watching it and I after Tonga, like all those trips Tonga, I never watched it when I was back home. And then, but yeah, so I was like, that was weird. So I just thought, okay. And my mum said to me, you know what, just keep it in the back of your mind. Just like, she was even saying like, pray about it or whatever. But, you know, think about it first. Like, so I didn't think about it for a while. And then months went by and I think it was December 2018. And this was so random. I wasn't thinking about it anymore. And the director, who's actually, we're really close now, her name's Ange. So she messaged me on Instagram really randomly. And she was like, hey, would you ever be interested in doing Miss Tonga Australia pageant? And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I remembered the whole thing about how I just had this feeling like to go and participate. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I said to her, you know, can you give me a day? Because I actually was very, I guess, you know, at that time as well, I was very like intentional. I was like, okay, I need to make sure if I do this, why am I doing it? I wanted to do it with a purpose. I didn't want to just. Yeah. Also, I realized, you know, I guess going through it as a young teenager, I remembered the whole, like, it's like when you like get to your early 20s, you're just like, oh yeah, like the pressure's gone to like really be with the community. But I realized as well, I was like, oh my gosh, like everyone's going to see me. So I was like, I really need to think about this. And I really thought about it for a day. And I was like, okay, what can I contribute? That was my like thing. I was like, what could I contribute to, whether it's our community or other young girls? And I actually reflected a lot on my teenage years too, and like everything I went through. And I, at first I was like, you know what, I would love to get involved in something like youth work or anything like that. And I guess I'm just, what would it, like the platform that it came with as well. I was like, I actually wanted to start a community project, which I'll go into later. But yeah, so I was like, had all these ideas, and I was like, you know what, I'll just do it. I'll just see how, and I was like, I'll see how I go. And it was so funny because a lot of my friends and cousins were shocked because I was always known as a girl like who didn't care about anything, and I was very like laughing. I never took anything seriously publicly. Like everyone just thought I was this baby that like just didn't care. And so they were shocked. They were like, I know, oh my gosh. Also, a lot of people didn't realize that I actually was a bit of a low-key like nerd. Like I did love like, school and stuff, and like that I was obsessed with, but people didn't know that because I just hid it from everyone. They just saw me as like the fun one. And so they were shocked at that too. So they were like, oh my gosh, how are you gonna do for like the categories and everything? And so I was like, whatever, like it'll be fine. And so so I said yes. I ended up saying yes. Okay, we'll do it. And the whole community pressure to, I guess it all came back. All that like realizing when you're a contestant in any pageant, especially island pageant, you need to be like on point with your image, like the way you present yourself, your lifestyle, everything like that. And oh my gosh, bless my mom. And I think maybe because she went through Halala like back in her day, she actually said to me after about a week or two of being a contestant, it wasn't for a few months. And my mom actually said to me, she said, it's not too late to pull out. And I was like, oh. And I said, Mom, why? We've already announced it. Like, I was like, it's too late. I'm going to have to do it because we already announced it and everything. And she was so cute. She was like, I could tell she was like, worried. And she said, when you do any kind of thing like pageant, and obviously she understood because she went through it, but she said, when you do things like this, like, there's always going to be critics and people criticizing, and they'll pick at you, like they'll pick everything about you. And my mom she was so cute. She said I would just hurt her so much to see any negativity about me. And I was just like, oh gosh. And you know what? I really was like, I felt really I just could feel how upset she was. And I said to her, I said, Mom, like, I love you and I really appreciate you caring. And then I said, but going through everything I went through as a teenager, I said, I don't care what people think. And I just had this, like, I said to her, I feel like my whole teenage years prepared me for any backlash or any negativity.
From Polynesian pageant.
I was like, I swear, like, I've heard, and I said to her, I said, we can't become slaves to what people think of us. And I said, once you give people the power to, I guess, speak over your life or get in your head with their opinions, with their negativity. This was, by the way, before any kind of negativity even happened. So obviously I was just very positive. I said, if we allow that, we're just going to be thinking about that our whole lives. I said, we're going to be living like that forever. If we just get through this, and if we get through this, we can get through whatever. Because this is times like pageants where you're out there and people can see you. Like it just, you really like, you get all the negativity and everything as well with the good stuff. So I went through that, and that was, so it was a few months later, and it was really, really eye-opening and like good experience to go through. I learned so much. I grew so much, actually, even in the short journey of Miss Tongan Australia. So, and I met some amazing girls. I loved who were like my friends for life as well, like sisters for life. So it was also like good to meet, I guess, other young Tongan women. And you know what? Going through such an experience together as well, like we all know how we're feeling. Like everyone's feeling the pressure of having to look perfect and, I guess fear of negativity. And then so when it came to the night, also things like, so we had different categories. It's so funny. I was just thinking about like preparations was crazy. Like, so for talent, I did flute, And I was actually very nervous about that because no one knew I played flute.
Because everybody, usually the girls do talunga, right? You do a talunga for talent.
Or like a dance or I guess singing or something. Talent. And so I was like, I wasn't even just nervous to perform that in front of our community. I was nervous because my family didn't even know that I played the flute. So I had flute. I was my favorite probably categories were probably interview, which is weird because usually people like get very nervous, but that's actually I would rather like talk than like, I don't know, perform, like dance or whatever. And my weakness was definitely taolunga. So I was actually, that's what I was fearing the most. I was like, I just knew I was gonna get, because I'm so unconfident. I've never been a good dancer at all, like my whole life.
You Sinohala?
I'm very I'm like so bad. So I just knew, I knew that was coming. I was like, you know what? But I said, if I just, you know what, whatever, I'll focus on what I'm good at or what I know, like, it will be all good. So yeah, like went through that. And then so after winning Miss Tongan Australia, you know what, actually another thing that I've noticed speaking about this with our culture is when we achieve something or when we have our little wins, like for example, things like that, sometimes we have trouble being proud of it, or I guess sometimes we minimize ourselves, if that makes sense. For example, I even realized that as soon as they announced my name, the only thing I could think of was thank God, because I looked at my family and I was like, oh, thank God, like my family won't be annoyed at me. Like, that was my first thought. Like, you know how usually you see like people crying when they get I was like, oh, thank God, my family, because I was thinking about my family did so much to help with preparation and stuff. I was like, oh, I just thank God that like they're not going to be annoyed at me for not. It's just like
for not winning.
It's like they don't even care if you win. They really, it's just, you know, they just want to help you and support you. I just couldn't believe that was my first thought. Oh my gosh, I actually even had an embarrassing moment. I actually fell on stage. After I finished my performance with the flute. I actually fell on the stage. So that was another like moment where I was like, you know what, whatever. I laugh. So I just laughed myself. I was like, oh geez. So that was a crazy journey. And then that was actually really just the beginning of a crazy year for me. So that was 2019. So just before everything went crazy with 2020. But yeah, so that whole rest of the year, like we went to Tongan for Hey Lala and everything. And like you were saying about feedback. Yeah. So I remember with Miss Tongan Australia, obviously my taolunga got negative feedback, which I was expecting. So I was like, oh, that's fine. I know my weakness, so whatever. I definitely, you know what, actually one of the things that I got criticized for and I saw, and this is really bad, and I do not recommend anyone ever do this when doing any events. I actually went through every single negative comment online, which is not good.
Yeah.
Like, not like, don't ever do that. But
what were they saying? What were they saying?
So what the main thing I guess was I got criticized for, and I guess this is a struggle with anyone who either is mixed or grew up with palangi and stuff, is the whole, oh, she's not, like the whole not Tongan enough. Yeah. You know? And I even saw one comment, it was like, she only won because she's like fair skinned. And I was like, okay, like that's ridiculous. Yeah. But yeah, like just so yeah, definitely also actually strangely, because my taolunga wasn't good, it's like the taolunga category was focused on a lot, but which is weird because my talent and my interview was really strong. So it's like, okay, so you're gonna judge me on my weakness. And like, it's like, you don't care about what I'm good at. You know, and that's what I guess we're good at. We're good at criticizing our own people, like
tearing people down.
Yeah, whatever they're weak at, like we're good at like cutting them down at that. And I saw, yes, there was a lot of negativity because my taolunga wasn't good, meaning apparently I don't deserve it. And there was, because I'm not, the whole not Tongan enough, which is funny because I was like, and I've always struggled with that, I think, growing up too, like, am I Tongan enough? Like, trying to be better and trying to be more Tongan. And then my dad actually, or it wasn't my dad, or someone reminded me, they said, you know, but you do have palangi blood, so why are you trying to and they reminded me, and I was like, oh yeah, I always forget that. But like,
Yeah.
it's because we're so, we don't get pressure from our other ethnicity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like whatever culture we're mostly in, they're the ones, you know. It's like I even forgot myself that why am I trying to be like, you know,
Yeah.
devout Tongan or whatever. So that was the main negative feedback. And then so I really tried to improve my taonga for Hela. Which I think it was improved. I actually asked some of these girls that I'm friends with who are actually really good at taonga. I said, please tell me the truth. Was it better than and so that was what I was worried about. Hey Lala was probably the biggest nerve-wracking one because you're going to like your home country.
Oh yeah.
So I was blessed. Yeah, so I was blessed. There was 25 of us girls, and I was blessed. So I to be with them and meet them and everything, and like be like sisters for life with a lot of them. So I was blessed I got third runner-up, and so yeah, that was a whole crazy experience in itself because you're in your homeland and you just the crowd for Australia Tongans like is nowhere near as hard. Yeah, it's like and my dad was actually warning me, and I was like, he's like, you know, when you go back there, like it's harsh, and I was okay. It's like everything gets criticized, and so I did the sensible thing. I didn't read all the negativity. I read some negative things, but I didn't read all of it. But just some things like because my interview is my favorite category. Things like, you know, I think I went with the stage interview, I got like, it was like, oh, her question was easy or something, like things like that. And it's just like, I don't know. Well, I think by the time you get to Hey Lala and you just, when you've already gone through, it's just like, whatever, just bring it on. You just have to have that mindset of like, remembering as well that everyone's going to have their own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, especially when you're on stage in front of your own people. But yeah, it was a really crazy experience. I learned so much. There was like, we didn't sleep. I barely slept at all the whole like few weeks. I was so blessed that my fahu actually made all of I really loved that process actually. The whole process of, you know, when girls go to compete in Halo, like their family and their villages make a lot of their costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
I really love that. I remember going into my auntie's house and she was making I think it was my float costume or something. My float. Yeah, it was, I just saw everything everywhere, you know, all the time. And it was just so like, I cried, obviously. But I was just like, it just really like, you really appreciate like your people, the people that do love you and are there to support you. And like, you know, their like how everything's handmade, and that's a whole nother part of the culture that you really appreciate when you're over there and you're like, there's no experience like it. So yeah, that journey was crazy too, just getting used to, and you know, everything was live, Facebook Live. So like,
yeah.
All the live comments are coming in. Oh my gosh, don't look.
And a lot of comments, mostly women, right?
Yeah, see, again, and that's the thing, like, and I think it's a normal thing, like a lot of, as girls, we love to see things like for example, I watched a lot of pageants leading up to it, of the Halala pageants. And you know, you notice things and you pick up things, and like, I don't know why, we're just raised to, and society as well, like it always tries to get us against each other. But yeah, it was a really good eye-opening experience for me as well. Like I just grew so much, and I feel like it made me a lot more resilient. It's like being more comfortable around our people and everything. Like once you go through things like that and you just get comfortable with negative comments, you're like, it's fine.
Well, that's I hope anyone that's any girl out there that wants to be Miss Halala, I hope this doesn't discourage you.
Oh no, don't let us discourage. It was so fun, honestly, and I tell like anyone, you know, any girl, I guess, it's so, you just grow so much in such a short time from that period of time. And that's why I would encourage it for anyone. Like from the time that I was entered Miss Tongan Australia all the way up until actually even beyond Halala, like leading up into 2020, I went to so many like events, and you get used to being in you know, environments where you have to speak and you have to speak on stage, or you have to I mean, even pageant where you have to interview. Oh my gosh, like you're so nervous and you get asked questions. It makes you so much stronger. I really would encourage, like, because once you put yourself out there, and you know, after you've done that, I feel like you don't regret it. And I told my mom that we were talking about, like, you really like you feel like proud of yourself. You're like, you know what, I put myself out there, and you just realize you did the best you could as well. Like, I would strongly encourage, because I know a lot of, and that's the thing, I honestly feel like a lot of girls, especially young Tong women, they probably, the reason why I know that there would probably be a lot of young Tong girls that would love to do it, but it's just when you start thinking of everyone watching you,
and like, the pressure and the criticism that comes with it.
I honestly feel like that's what would hold people back. But I don't know, I just feel like all of that doesn't matter when you see your family helping you. And I think that was the cutest and like the most heartwarming things, like even things like that weren't on stage. So when we'd go to the Ulunga practice, and you know, you see all your family sitting around with the band and stuff, it just, things like that, you're just like, I'm so glad I'm doing this. And you're just so you're representing your family and your villages, like your whole Tongan pride like goes to a whole nother level, and your family pride as well. Like, you just feel all that love. And I would highly encourage it.
Do it. Highly encourage
Growing so much. But after that, after Halala, I felt like of like, oh, I've been on stage in front of my own people and I survived. Like, you feel like you can do anything. Even like, you know, when I told you I fell on stage, like, I survived it. Like, you know, like there's nothing, you go through things like that, and you just realize, like, if I can go through that, and I actually use it, I try and use it to like bring down my nerves or whatever, other things. I'm like, if I went through that, like, I'll be fine. I can
go through everything.
Yeah.
I know. Anybody out there that's watching, any girl that wants to be Miss Hela or going to a pageant to get inspired from this video, I wish the best for you, but make sure you come hit me up and we can talk about it. We can get you on the podcast right after your experience. Just hit me up. We can. I want to talk about your experience right after.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I do. I guess I think the last thing I want to talk to you about is just your what your goals right now in your life, your passion, and what you're trying to do for yourself. And I know you talked about you're going into psychology now, so I want to kind of hear that story.
Yeah. So I guess this is funny. I've been wanting to study or pursue psychology and become a psychologist for like since actually high school, because I've always been so interested, obviously, with everything I went through as a teenager. I was always interested in behavior and how our mind works and how it's linked to how we behave and environment and all of that. And I guess growing up in the different environments I did with church and I mean, like even tutoring, like things like that, I was always interested in that. And then see, again, when I was really young, I doubted myself and I thought, no, I can't do it. It's too hard. So I, went through like retail and event, everything like that. And then it was actually during lockdown. So we went through really harsh lockdowns last year in Melbourne for months. And I think when you're isolated, and you know what, I've been on the go since Miss Tongan Australia was December 2018, actually all the way up until beginning of last year, because we were planning for the next Miss Tongan Australia last year, but obviously it got postponed with everything going on. I was on the go so much that although I was growing so much, I didn't have time to process anything. So when I was in lockdown last year, I was, processing my whole crazy year I had before of like just never being at home. And I really thought to myself, like, what do I really want to do? Because, being in events before that. And then I just decided, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give it a go. I was like, fail. At least I tried it, and I couldn't believe that. Like after like a few years, like it took me so long to finally pursue it. So back to full-time studying. So I do want to become eventually a psychologist or a counselor. And so I guess what happened was it was just me reflecting on everything I've been through in my life. And especially, you know, in our community and everything. And I don't know very many Pacific Island psychologists or like I know there definitely are some, and they would definitely be like, you know, feel them, but I just didn't know that many. And I was just thinking about my own mental health throughout all those years, and just feeling like, you know what, like our young girls need like women to talk to. And I was thinking, you know, what can I do with my own life experiences? So how can I help? And I feel like even as I just started studying psychology last year, it's like you realize that you're learning all the theory, and having that life experience really like it like makes it more well-rounded, if that makes sense. And that's what that's kind of what pushed me. I just thought when I was locked down, I would just, first of all, you can't even believe we're in a global pandemic. Like it's just so shocking to like comprehend that. And I think that for me, I was like, you know what, life's too short. We're in a pandemic. We didn't think that any of this stuff would happen. So I was actually thinking, I'm just gonna do what I want to do. And I said, I can't believe it's taken me so long, but this whole time I wanted to pursue psychology. So that's how it started. And I was thinking about my own mental health. Obviously I'm not going to go too much into it, but like things like I did used to get a lot of like social anxiety, things like that. And I did see, and that was another thing when I started studying, I actually did start seeing a psychologist myself. Because I actually was thinking, okay, the more I heal my own trauma and the more I heal from my own, you know, and grow myself, then the more I can like be there for other people and understand it and support other people as well. So that's where it all came from. Like it was just all of that thinking in lockdown. But yeah, so it's like I've always wanted to do it, finally did it. So yeah, I've just started that journey basically. So yeah, it will take a few years, but yeah, I'm excited. That's my kind of goals. That was my goal, and I guess I would have loved, because I was actually planning to start some community projects last year, especially around, you know, Pacific women, young women. But then everything happened, and like, you know, with lockdown and everything, so that was all put on hold. So I guess that kind of gave me time to focus on my own goals, because I was so used to like, you know, you get like oh, family, community, okay, and then like it's like you get into that cycle, and then when the lockdown happened, I was like, okay, I need to look at what I need to do for me.
It kind of allowed you to self-reflect within yourself and just like slow down. You know, sometimes you need to slow down.
Slow down. Because I was literally hardly home from just all the, you know, and all the events and stuff. And I went to Tongan for like, so finally being home and stuff and being able to reflect and like coming back to what I want to do and what really, really resonates with me. Also, I think making it like a lifelong thing, like with psychology and being a counselor, you know, it's like a full-on career path. Whereas when I was younger and I was studying business, and then I actually stopped starting to work full-time to be able to like help my family and everything. But my thing in my mind, another reason as well was, okay, I'll just focus on working and stuff so I can make money and help my family and everything, not thinking about what I really, really wanted to do and what I'll enjoy doing. So yeah, that's my goal, is like to pursue psychology, career in psychology. And I also wanted, it's random, I wanted to like look into like investments and stuff, whether it's businesses or like properties and things like that. So I guess my goal would be, and more goals would be like we talked about, I really want to take care of myself to be able to like take care of my family. And that was it. Or what other, sorry, you said goals. I'm trying to think of other goals in general. I think that was
it.
Yeah, I guess I will be I will actually be, once we eventually have our next Miss Tongan show pageant, whenever this stuff finishes, the pandemic stuff goes away, I I will be like involved in that a lot as well. So like more the organization side, because I really would love to like be a part of that and be a part of like mentoring the next like the future contestants and everything, and being able to, I sound like such a pageant mom. Like I would love to like go with them to, you know, like be their little support at Hey Lala and stuff.
And by then you'd be like a licensed therapist, so you'd be like, hey, I'm here.
We have a therapist on the because honestly, like when you go to Hello and stuff, your mood swings are just my poor family. But
no, it's funny. I went to college for and psychology was my major as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then the reason why I decided. Oops.
No, it's okay.
The reason why I decided to go to psychology because I wanted to fix my own broken family.
Yeah, you actually start reflecting on everything.
I know. I was going through a lot. So I was like, you know what? Let me figure out why my family. Let me try to like reverse engineer everything I went through in my life and try to figure out myself. And then as I was learning the different theories and different things you learn in psychology. And I looked back at my family. I was like, nope, I can't save them. It's too late. It's too late. Learn these theories of why people act. No, it's too late. I'm just gonna focus on the next generation, on the future.
Yeah, that's true. I know, because you realize there's some things that are just embedded.
Yeah, nature and nurture.
So deeply conditioned, and you're like, nah. Like even I was the same. I actually started sending. Oh my gosh, I think my mom got sick of me sending like links and stuff. And like I was even like, you know, sending things. I think one of the things that I guess our older generation maybe like, a lot of them do understand it, but I think some of them obviously maybe either just don't comprehend the concept of it, is like things like trauma.
Yeah.
And how, you know, we have to heal that to be able to, I guess, you know, there's a lot of things in your life that will get stopped by your unhealed trauma, and like you don't realize because it's just behaviors. It just controls your behaviors. And I was actually talking to some family, and because my family is very strong Christians, they're very strong Christians, and you know, I was talking to this family member, and they were like, I told them, you know, I was talking to them about trauma actually, and I said, you know, I'm obviously trying to help. I was like, you know, everyone has trauma from their childhood or their upbringing, and once you heal that, and then this family member was like saying to me, you know, you just pray and it will go away. And I was like, look, yes, you pray and God, and I do believe, yes, God does help you with like, you know, healing and stuff. But I think there's like a concept that if you just pray, it's just going to heal itself. But it's like, you have to unpack it. And I think there's this thing where, you know, people don't want to unpack these things because they have to face it, and then they have to face, you know, because once you do all of that, then you can reverse behaviors or unlearn behaviors. And it's so interesting. Yeah. So when I talked to a family member like you, like I was like, when I realized that they were like, no, I don't have any trauma, I was like, okay, you know what? I would just teach the future generations. We'll just, there's this.
I noticed that because we're so deeply rooted in religion and faith. Like that's, you know, that's what I always heard, you know, like, I remember I used to hear like, you know, if I'm doing bad in life, it's because I'm sinning. You're sinning. That's why. You know why? You know why bad things happen to you? Because you're sinning too much and you haven't gone to church. I'm like,
oh my god! I've heard that too. I even heard. I think I got a cold or something once, and relative was like, they were like, you know, it's because how's your relationship with God? And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's because I was walking in the rain, but okay. Like, you're
a bad child. That's why you're sick.
It's just like, I think there's like it's like where you have to accept some responsibility for like things that happen as well. Like, because I do believe that obviously, like, you know, God does help with everything. Realizing that consequences for there's natural consequences, I mean, for for things that happen.
No, like I do believe in God's power, and I do believe in power of faith, but I think the Bible says like faith with works. You gotta put work behind your faith.
Yeah, and I guess like that you have to still take action.
Yeah, take action. You gotta work for it. You gotta work.
Yeah, that was like that's a thing I've always told, like if a family member or whatever. I'm like, yes, but
they
have to do it as well. Yeah.
They just think that faith itself would just like fix everything in their life. But faith is strong, but you have to put in the work.
Yeah, and even like just with even like your inner work or whatever we call it, like all of that, like unpacking everything and unlearning behaviors. Yeah, like it's definitely a huge thing that thank God the next generation will grow up with all that.
Well, I'm definitely gonna look forward to your career as a psychologist, and definitely be looking out for you. Hey, so anybody out there, going through some stuff, just have issues, hit her up. She's gonna be. I'm trying to give you future clients right now, so I'm trying to give you future customers.
Online counseling. We actually do those. We actually do those practice ones. I'm just like, my family will be like, when I'm doing practice ones in my family, I'm like, it's gonna be difficult. But yeah.
But yeah, I think man, we've had a great discussion. We had a great podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Man, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for taking the time to do this. I remember when you responded back to my message, I was like yes, I was like there was like a time period. I was like, okay, I don't think this is gonna happen. But
it was very good. It was very good, actually really good timing. Like I've been in quarantine since I think I'm on day 12 now. So I was like, you know what? This is actually really good timing. Like, I'm home. I'm not, because I just came back from my family and stuff. So I actually spent Christmas and New Year's in quarantine. But yeah, so I was like, this is actually really good. And I was like, it gave me time to reflect as well. Yeah. Like to be able to talk about everything. So no, it was really good timing. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it too. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time. Appreciate you doing this. And also having the courage to talk about your life, because a lot of people don't realize how hard that is, to be opening yourself up and be vulnerable. So anybody shows up. So, props to you and shout out to you for opening up your life to us. And I definitely know that a lot of things that you talked about and shared. I know a lot of Polynesian and a lot of women have gone through it. And hopefully, this can add value to them as they watch this podcast. But the last thing I want to ask you, I always ask every person if you just share some final thoughts to end it off. Some final thoughts, just everybody out there just listening, because I know I do know that a lot of people are gonna be inspired and empowered by this. But a lot of things you do, even though it was a lot of laughs and just us just joking around and sharing our funny stories and of growing up, but you did definitely share a lot of great things, and I definitely appreciate that. So yeah, can you just share some final thoughts, some final words to leave off with everybody? And I don't want to put that pressure on you, but yeah.
Okay.
We say a lot of interview questions. Yeah, leave your final thoughts.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the question. So I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna put you on the spot one more time.
Thank you. I guess final thoughts or like encouragement to anyone watching this. I would just love to encourage people to there's some sayings that I love, like the ones I already mentioned, things like the cure to judgment is empathy. So I just really want to encourage, I would just firstly want to encourage to question everything before assuming. So and that just goes for anything that we learn, whether it's information or like things that we even hear about other people like in the community. I would just really, really encourage, to like pause. It's like sometimes people just react and start talking or whatever. I would just really encourage to question everything that you see or hear or receive information or talk or anything about other people. and I would really encourage anyone to try and listen to, and I guess already doing it with this interview, but try and expand your way of thinking just by listening to other people's stories. And I would really strongly encourage anyone to allow yourself to be vulnerable. I really like encouraging that as well, because I'm still working on that myself. But I feel like the more we are vulnerable, it doesn't even have to be our family, like our friends or to other people in our life. I feel like the more vulnerable we are, the more we understand other people, and the more people understand us, and we'll be able to talk about these issues to improve it. And I think my main one is just to be, it sounds like cliche or whatever, I don't know what you want to call it, it's a common saying, but just to learn to be your authentic self. And whether that's personality or things that you love doing, and to take up space. I really love that. I'm getting encouraged for that. It doesn't, whether it's pageant or whatever areas that you want to go into, but you're just scared of what people think, just let go of other people's opinions. And I would really just encourage, just go for it. Otherwise, you know what, you regret it later. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think if you don't take that step out and of your comfort zone, you'll just end up regretting it later. And even now, after having embarrassing things happen, falling on stage, I have no regrets though. When you go through all that, you really don't regret it, and you really learn from all those experiences. And you're not going to learn if you don't get out of your comfort zone and grow. So yeah, I just want to encourage that.
Good response. Good response.
Oh wait, one last thing, sorry. I would really, especially during these crazy times, I really just want to encourage to please put your own mental health first before everyone else's, and learning to say no, and just learning to protect your own space and your own peace. So yeah, thank you so much. That was helpful.
First place. But yeah, like I said, thank you for everybody tuning in. Thank you for everybody for tuning in, and thank you for watching. And thank you for taking the time. I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. I'm gonna talk to you right after.
Okay.
Okay.